Welcome everybody back to the Dynamis pod. This is Robert. This evening I am joined by Dennis Glover. Dennis, take it away. Let the people know who you are.
Hey guys, check this out. I'm on a podcast. This is actually my first one. So hopefully things will be fun. I didn't tell you that before you hit record. So
Very
my
nice.
name is Dennis Glover. You can find me at Dennis in the Machines on the Instagram, the YouTube, the TikTok, I think I'm on Threads. I'm on quite a bit of those different things. So yeah, just check that one out, Dennis in the Machines. And I've been in the automotive and automotive-ish. So I've worked on heavy equipment, truck and coach, motorcycles, ATVs, basically anything that goes vroom or once went vroom and doesn't anymore. I've been doing that for just shy of 20 years now. So had my ASE master certifications, licensed in Canada for 310S and 310T, automotive and truck and coach. Worked in Michigan for a little while, so I was licensed for a bunch of stuff over there. And I spend my time these days teaching at the post-secondary level.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, I've been wanting to try to get you on for a little while now. And I'm glad that our schedules actually lined up so we could get you on here. I'll be honest, this is the first one I've done in probably a month and a half. I got a couple in the can. I'm still editing, but this one should be a really good one. I'm looking forward to it.
No pressure, right?
Yeah, no pressure, exactly. So you say you've been in the industry for approximately 20 years. What's one of the things that you've worked on that you would consider that's been kind of odd or oddball or something that people might not realize that technicians could sometimes get themselves involved in?
Oh, that's a really good question. So oddball, probably quarry drilling trucks when I was working on some of the heavy equipment. And that was specifically an AC problem where they had no AC and it gets pretty warm in those things. And there's about a foot of dirt on top of it. So all the AC lines run across the top. And of course, they're
Right.
buried in a foot of dirt. And you got to try to find the leak without creating new ones. So that one was pretty neat, I
So
would
you was like
say.
a farmer. you had to dig. You had to dig down through some dirt to actually find things first.
Yeah, that one might have been going a little bit more into archaeology. That was an old truck.
Exactly.
So they,
So
they do
what
not
ended up
update
being wrong
those.
with it?
Just a hole in a line. Line got old,
Well,
corroded. That was actually one of the first things I did when I first started working on trucks. That was way back in like 2007, 2008. I picked a really good time to get into the industry, didn't I?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, just after like 7 or 8 years after the, OBD2 stuff started really taking off, just
Yes.
pre-2000, so definitely.
Yes. I was thinking more so of right before the economy crashed, where I got in with all the promises and, oh, yeah, everything's going to be great. And then literally the company that I worked for, we were attached to a fleet company of trucks, and that company went under. And then that made it real difficult. That company's still kicking, the one that I was working for,
Right.
that I started my apprenticeship with. But yeah, there were some interesting times around that recession.
So you bring up that as far as an apprenticeship goes, so I, did not go to school for this industry. I was at a shop, and I was an apprentice. That's how I got into the industry. Basically, I had left a job as a parts driver, and I had always worked on stuff, and all the way back as as old as you can hold a wrench, as many of our stories, and then got into it as an apprentice. What's some of the pros and cons of being an apprentice as opposed to going to a post-secondary school?
Well, that's a really good question. I like the apprenticeship because it gets right involved and it gets into it.
Sure.
So, and when you look at education as a whole, apprenticeship goes way, way, way back even before post-secondary existed, right? Where it's ideally you're working next to somebody and with them on every single thing that they're doing. I really love, especially in the small shops, where it's just you and a tech, and they might be yelling at you a whole lot. My very first journey person or journeyman, Romanian guy. So he he was very, very vocal, and I did not know, or sorry, I did know anytime I made a mistake. And I think
Right.
that's, you know, it's harsh. It can be a shock if you've never experienced that before. But wow, I learned a whole lot doing that. And the really cool thing that I liked is I got paid while I was working. So instead of having to
Sure.
shell out all that money, which I later in life did when I decided to go back to teachers college, got paid throughout high school as I started my apprenticeship right in high school, which was pretty wicked. Now, similar to what you mentioned, I grew up, I think 10 was the first time I started tearing apart a car. The
Sure.
mom's Dodge Omni quit. Dad parked it out behind the pool, and I stripped every single nut and bolt on it. So I was pretty comfortable by the time I was 16 starting an
Exactly.
apprenticeship, where I find the post-secondary is really, really advantageous to the students that, there's a lot of people that grow up in apartment buildings I had a student never put air in a tire. He's 18 years old. And post-secondary is perfect for him because he had, I don't know in the US what all the post-secondary looks like, but in Canada, for the most part for automotive, we're a 2-year post-secondary program, which then you can from there go into apprenticeship or pick a different field or something else even within the automotive. But that 2 years really helped him build his confidence and kind of gain some usable skills so that he was able to then start an apprenticeship.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I can see that. The way it is here in America, it's so the way that it works is basically your high school programs, they have a vocational cutout where you can kind of leave school and you can go to a centralized area where all they do is some type of a STEM or a technical type of a job, every day where you're learning and it's very structured, but also it's not like standard high school, right? Like they're still teaching and touching on English, vocabulary, mathematics, all these things, but their main focus is actual trades. So, in high school, there's a lot of students that go and do that. I kind of torpedoed myself in the very beginning. I was going into my junior year, so 2 years into high school, I had to have 18 credits by the time I finished out to be a senior to even graduate. I had 2 credits. So, I
Wow.
basically had credits for PE for 2 years. Now, whether that's on somebody else or that's on me, I'm gonna take full responsibility because I was the one that was supposed to be doing the work there at the school and wasn't doing it. So I didn't get to go to even that. But basically, after that happens, then you can opt to go to a community college, take an automotive program there. You can opt to go to a private school. You can, get a year typically is what most of those private schools are. Some are accelerated and it could be 9 months long, believe it or not. And I think that even an 8-hour day at 9 months seems like a little bit way too short of a time to learn and pick up safely a trade that you're going to go out and work in, and definitely there's some students that might go out there and within 18 months or within 12 months of leaving school, even they may be tasked with working on a hybrid vehicle or something that's actually dangerous, a little more dangerous so than, some other vehicles. And
Yeah.
but that's how it works here in America. It's basically you get a 2-year vocational, that's kinda comes into your high school era, and then after that, you can do post community, postgraduate, post high school graduate, we'll say, work on, you know, in a college setting at a community school or a private school. And then there's tons of programs after that, of course. I mean, once you go all the way through, you can get into a specific, like GM has ASEP that you can apply for. Ford has their FACT program. BMW has a fast track program. There's a bunch of different programs that you can do. And a lot of those are kind of dovetailed into the schools here in America. So basically, the school is the feeder for those other programs. And of course, those other programs can have a really, really high bar to cross in order to actually get into it. So you're talking
Yeah.
about 3.5 GPAs that they want to see kind of throughout your career, but definitely throughout, the schooling as far as the automotive side. They want to see 90% or above like attendance. They want to see 90% or above professionalism, which sometimes could be kind of difficult for students that like things and don't like people very much, you know? So I'm sure you've
Yeah.
seen those things, but that's
Ah.
kind of the way it works down here in America. Which part of Canada are you in currently?
So I'm in Ontario. I am very close
Ontario.
to the Detroit area for all
Okay,
the US listeners that'll understand where that's at. And that's where I worked. I
sure,
worked right off of 8 Mile. And so if anybody's not familiar with Detroit, one side of 8 Mile, at least I don't know now because it was 2010 when I worked there. But at the time, one side, no police service. Call the police, you got like a 90-minute wait if they show up. And the other side, you get 2 cop cars because it was a different county. So
sure,
yeah, I worked on the side that supposedly had police service. But yeah, that was pretty wild. There were a few times like snowstorms and highways are closed where
sure.
I'm getting off at like 5 Mile and driving up through all the old Motown buildings that were half burned down and boarded up and never had
Yeah,
any issues. But yeah, I mean, I was young and kind of dumb and I'd go into the auto zone on 7 Mile and buy stuff and whatever.
sure. Never thought anything about it, huh?
No, no, that was exactly it. No, but I don't know. I just always people are people, right? And
Yeah, so how long did you
I
live in America? Most of your life?
never actually lived there. My whole
Oh,
family's from there, so I've worked over there. I've got my dual citizenship. I mean,
I
depending on
see.
the day when I go to renew my Nexus, sometimes they, oh, you're Canadian, you don't live here. Sometimes you're American, you're not
Right,
Canadian. Okay, so but yeah, I've been very much just kind of back and forth my whole life, and that's been pretty cool.
I got you.
And I mean, my area in Canada, like we're pretty Americanized, so obviously some of our federal stuff and like the schooling systems are different. But I confuse the Canadian and U.S. stuff all the time. Like, well, I always say soda or pop wrong, and then everybody makes
Yeah.
fun of me for it, and I just call it a soda pop. Or like in the states, they call it just a beanie, right? Or I call it a toque. My very first day working stateside, hey, I want a toque. I forgot my toque. I'm cold, and the guy, what the is a toque?
Yeah.
What do you mean? So
Yeah.
that was fun.
Yeah, I can see that. The wife and I moved from Ohio. I'd lived in Ohio my entire life, so not too awful far from where you're talking about. Yeah, central Ohio, so probably 300-400 miles at the very most. And then we moved all the way out to Wyoming, and it was the same thing. Like, it's funny how even in the same country or the same region, like, things are called something completely different. We went through the whole soda and pop thing the entire time I lived out there. A lot of students used to make fun of me for saying collar because I only could say collar one way, and it's like either it's the collar or it's the collar on your shirt, and they're both exactly the same. To me, is how I say them. So everybody used to get a really big kick out of that. But yeah, I could totally get that not being able to assimilate properly back and forth, especially if you live that close to the border, like you're saying.
Right? Yeah, that's it. So are you still a Buckeyes fan?
No, I stopped doing
Okay,
all of that
good.
stuff years ago. I just
We
started
can
reading books and listening to books.
we can keep
So
talking then. So
yeah, yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like most people don't even realize why that entire thing kicked off. I guess there was a war over Toledo.
okay,
So, yeah,
I
that
didn't
was a
know that.
long, long time ago. That was in the 1800s, if I remember right, and it was a literal war. Like, people actually fought back and forth across the border, and people died over the city of Toledo.
Wow.
And Michigan was claiming it, Ohio was claiming it, and that's the reason that Michigan has the entire Upper Peninsula. So there was a
Okay.
trade-off that was given. There was a concession made one way or the other. Like, it was basically just territory and land. Like, hey, if you just leave us alone in Toledo, we'll see what we can do with getting the federal government to give you guys that entire portion up there at the UP, and that's how it went down. But yeah, the whole sports bias and all that kind of stuff. I'm too old for any of that stuff anymore. I left all of it go about the age of 40. I just started reading books and started listening to stuff and listening to books, and I was done with all of it. Can't deal with it
Yeah.
anymore.
Oh, well, you know what? So football still holds a close place in my heart, but I
Yeah.
really like it's been a couple years. I can't even watch it anymore. Like even the kids, and I'm all for them making their money, but it's just everything's gone so commercial. Like it's
But yeah.
I can't relate. I cannot relate to it whatsoever anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's more like
It's a
nice little
lot of
segue
selling.
here.
Yeah, it's a lot of selling
Yes,
out.
a lot of
It
selling,
used
and
to
I
be that they played for the love of the game, and they played to show that, skill, grit, all those things, and then now and Ohio was one of the places that started that, uh, all the way back with they were the ones getting caught for it, like Maurice Claret and all these things that happened with the tattoo gate and Jim Tressel when he was there, and I think he still got a raw deal. I mean, Gene Smith had to have known that all that stuff was happening as the athletic director. Everybody looked at a blind eye. I was in the car market. I was in the automotive industry my entire time when I lived in Ohio, and it was a known secret that all these dealerships were giving these guys demo cars to drive on the weekends, drive at night, whenever they were out, whenever they didn't have practice, they could just go to a dealership in certain areas of the city, and they'd just go and be able to hop in a vehicle and go drive it wherever they wanted to. And it was like I said, it was a known secret. Like, this stuff happened all the time. But it once all that stuff happened, like, the wife and I both was like, got a really bad taste in our mouth when they treated Jim Tressel that way. He always seemed like a real stand-up guy, and they just kinda like, well, he's like, some chump from, Youngstown. We'll bring you down here. And they did a really good job with him there. I mean, they were doing amazing, and then all of this stuff goes on, and it's his fault. And it's like, well, your guys that do things that are beneath you, they can only be held to a certain account for so long, and so can you. There's some things I'm sure he did not actually know what was going on. Some of it possibly. But like I said, Gene Smith and the board of trustees, definitely knew what was going on. Like I said, it's a known secret all those things were happening. But then they come along and they're like, well, we're going to make it legal for them to be able to make their money and stuff. And it's not like they weren't going to do that as soon as they went pro. And that's a lot of the students were going pro before they were ever graduated out of college. Cardell Jones was a perfect candidate for that type of stuff. He just wanted to play. I didn't come to play school. I came to play football. Well, that's not what it was originally set up like. So I'm of the same mind. I mean, it's great. I'm glad that they're, being able to go there and play and all that kind of stuff. But as far as like actually being a consumer of it anymore, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you, and so that's a nice segue though into some more automotive and education related stuff of
Yeah,
like what do kids do today? Because so you got a few years on me, and you seem like a guy that's kind of paid attention to things, and I kind of hit that. So I'm like dead nuts in the millennial generation, and
sure.
I hit the housing market. Like I don't know what it's like all stateside, but in
Terrible.
Canada we've gone like a crazy boom that started in 2014, 15, and I thought I
Hmm.
overpaid for my house, and I think I did, but now like my house is tripled, quadrupled in value. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm seeing students that are coming through that are 16, 17, 18 years old, and I some of my students have been even into their 50s, which is crazy having guys
Yeah.
that older than me that I'm trying to teach them stuff. There've been a few times like, "Hey, like here's the chalk, like go for it." And there's no, no, no,
Exactly.
it's we're good. But yeah, like, it's crazy because it's I know that the millennials are always giving the boomers a hard time. "Oh, you could buy a house for, like, 10 bucks and a pack of bubble gum," and the guy I work with, "No, no, I bought
Right.
2 houses for that." So I kinda overpaid for mine, but I'm in that nice divide where it's like, I did, but not compared to what guys are doing today. So just to throw
Exactly.
some numbers out there, because I know Canadian and US markets are a little bit different. I'm in a safe little community, not maybe like 20, 30 minutes out of the city, but by no means like in farmland. So I paid about 150 grand for my house in 2015. Same house now goes somewhere around 450 grand. Built
Yeah.
in 59, wartime home with a small extension off the back, built in 96. How? Like 450 grand? Like, and these guys aren't making like you got to make some money to be able to pay for that kind of stuff. And our
Exactly.
wages, I just was speaking with a shop, and so they're licensed techs. They pay they do some specialty work where there's a lot of kind of repeat work that's very similar. They
Hmm.
pay 35 bucks an hour is kind of their base wage, and then they give a bonus structure on that, which okay, it's not bad. Dealerships are all flat rate over here, and so they get paid by the job for anyone that's not familiar with what that is, and
Right.
that's a whole nother bucket of worms. But I mean, there's some numbers for when I'm talking about the financial stuff, and okay, what do students have to go through? That's where I like the apprenticeship, where they pay a little bit. I think it's subsidized by the Ontario government, so it costs them about 2 grand to come through, which not bad, because I know in the US, some of the private schools now please correct me on this, but I've heard that some of them you can be for the automotive is easy $40,000 for your
Yeah, that's correct.
post-secondary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know what the
between 40 and 50 for about a year. So,
okay, that's a lot of money,
it
and,
is.
like, where do you get that? And especially as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, like, where do you come up with that?
Most of that in our system is subsidized by the federal government, so it's basically you go
Okay,
there, you fill out your ASFAB, you fill out all this information, and then you take out student loans. That's exactly where it is. That's been that way forever, to be honest, down here stateside. To the real estate side, I have students come through a lot of times, especially at the school I used to teach at, that a lot younger subset, maybe a lot more, I would say, socioeconomically a little bit lower as far as like dollar amount that they were probably bringing in as far as family wise. And to be honest, like they would come through and they were dejected. It's like, how am I ever supposed to get enough money to have a wife, to have a child, to be able to buy a home, right? And that was a pretty common thing that they would share sometimes. Like, what am I supposed to do? And, what are you supposed to say to that? I'm like, I'm 50. I've only ever owned one house in my entire life. And that was for pretty much for that same reason that you're talking about. The timing never really worked out well for me to go and get a home. And now, if you went to try to buy something, it's almost out of reach for, even someone who makes decent money. So, a lot of these places are $2,000, $2,500 for rent every month, in certain areas. And even like near my work, it's in a pretty affluent area. You're looking at $3,500 a month for some of these two-bedroom apartments. So it's not easy out there as far as like being able to just go out, get yourself into a nice little niche, like you were saying, and get yourself a job and buy something.
yeah,
I think we're
and
sitting on top of a real estate bubble, and that's sad in one way, but it's almost necessary in another way. I don't know how
we need
your
a
guys'
reset.
property taxes works, but you probably seen this thing start to roll up in value and equity, and now all of a sudden your property taxes have probably went up quite a bit as well. So
How'd you
it's
know?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, it's a squeeze, right? Like all the industries get squeezed by governmental agencies, right? Like
Mhm.
as they print more money and they subsidize more things, necessarily, that money has to come from somewhere. So, inflation is another tax upon the working person that the governments are perfectly fine with, imposing, and it's the easiest one that they can impose. All they have to do is keep printing money.
Yeah, right? And it's insane, and it's insane how many people don't understand that. So, like in, Canada, our minimum wage in Ontario right now, I think, is just hit $17 an hour,
Mhm.
which might sound great to somebody who's working for a $5, $6 an hour minimum wage, but just the cost of everything goes up with that. And, that's when I first started my apprenticeship. One of the guys that I worked with, older fella about to retire, he was making 65 grand a year in the 90s on a flat rate system, working at just
Yeah,
a general, our Canadian Tire. So it's like our version of a Sears garage, or
sure.
Midas, I think would be like another, just a big chain,
Yeah,
right?
like a Meineke, yeah, exactly, NTP.
Yeah,
Yep,
right? In the 90s, they were making
yeah,
that, and this area, at least in Southern Ontario, we didn't hit that until maybe just a couple years ago again, where, like,
sure.
everybody could easily make that, which, like, that's crazy that how there used to be, from my understanding, was on the older cars, you had better book times and people could make time, and,
There
like,
was.
not just by taking it to the customer. Because I know guys that can make time, but I mean, there's a lot of extra bolts in their toolbox that don't necessarily belong there, right?
Yeah, that's the downside of the flat rate system, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and, I could always bill. If you kept me busy, I could make time, but I wasn't making
Sure,
crazy time. You'd have your good weeks, but, in a 40-hour week, I'd regularly hit between 45 and 50 just because I
sure.
could book it. But there's some guys that are billing 60, 70 hours a week, and I never got to be that guy. And, like, that's just insane to try to do that with today's time and billing. And I know you got to be good with a pen to do that at some of the dealerships, but I worked for a Ford dealer for a little while, and the reason that I bring up their name is because of that reel that, it's Jim Farley, right, as their CEO.
Sure is.
All these
CEO,
jobs,
yep,
we pay these guys 120 grand a year. Why can't we find mechanics? Well, so it was 2012 ish when I worked there. Our diag time for flat rate, 0. We did not get paid for warranty diag. So why is there so much warranty cost? Well, because you scan a car, you throw a part at it. And how many
yeah,
times have you heard, well, dealership can't fix my car? It's not that they necessarily can't fix it, but they're not paying their techs to do that. My mother-in-law has a 2017 Buick Enclave. For the entire warranty period, air conditioning leak. And every year that she'd bring it back, they'd replace the hose underneath, and finally it runs
sure,
out of warranty. I replaced the rear evaporator, and it's been good for 5 years now. Like,
exactly.
why? It's
You
not the,
found the actual leak?
yeah, right. But it's
That's
they could have
exactly it.
found it, but they're not getting paid to do it. Like that.
Yeah,
That's how is it even legal to pay? It's whatever it may be, but say a 5-hour job for customer
sure.
pay is only 2.5 for warranty.
Yeah,
So
it definitely falls back on the manufacturer. So, if you want to treat me for just a second, let me take you on a wild little ride all the way back in the way back machine. So when I
please do.
started doing this in this industry, it was just outside of so 20 years outside of like the time when a technician actually made 50% of book time. So whatever their pay was, if they got paid an hour of book, so they made sorry, not an hour of book. So they made an hour of 50% of the door rate. Let's put it that way. So that's what they made. So in the 70s, 80s, coming up through, some of these guys, even though the rate on the door was $80, the technician was making $40 of that. And as times changed and as more governmental oversight came in with EPA and all these other things, they started slowly constricting and adding on to what the owners had to pay and licensing and insurance and all those things throughout the year. So where it started to go away at was they started taking it from the technician. So instead of the business, being on the hook for it, and like people always say, well, tax to business is, heavier. They don't understand that the business doesn't pay the tax, the consumer does. The end user is always the person that's on the hook for whatever taxes go up. So as it went through, like starting, and you used a literal book when I started in this, there was no computers, you didn't do any of that stuff. There was no internet. Al Gore hadn't come along yet and created the internet back in the 90s, right? So we're using Mitchell books, we're using motor books, labor guides, that kind of thing. But as it came through, like even if he was on flat rate, it just started to be pulled away from the technician. And if you look, there's like 5 or 6 clips now of Eric Weinstein, who's been on Joe Rogan and multiple different times, talking about like if you look at the consumer price index and around 1972, our GDP takes a rocket ship and starts to go way up. And then all of a sudden, wages compared to they stagnate and they continue this straight line all the way across, all the way till now. So it's like, where is all that money gone? And most of it gets eaten up in fees, taxes, insurances, and all those things. So, and then on the same side, the manufacturer comes in when guys don't clock enough time on the lines as a warranty ticket. If they don't clock enough time on those, and typically it's 80% or more, not only do they lose out because sooner or later they audit that real quick in the company and they go, okay, well, everyone's doing this job in half of what we used to pay for it. So they start cutting their times down, and then on the backside of that, when guys aren't doing that like they're supposed to, manufacturer comes in and does a full audit of the dealership and finds out, well, they owe us money back for things that they weren't doing correctly on the warranty side. So the manufacturer gets to pull from both ends of that pot, right? And all of a sudden, the dealerships are left out in the cold. The community and the customer is the one who's going to end up being left out in the cold the most, because if you pull apart market value and where market liabilities lie, or I would say biases lie, is the market is split 70-30, and it's 70% to the mom and pop in the chain store right now in this country, in America, and it's 30% to the dealership. So they have lost quite a bit of market share over the years, and they're doing everything they can to try to scratch that, pull that back, right? But they've not been, I don't think they've been very successful in doing it so far, and I don't think they've done themselves any favors.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I don't know how the dealerships work over there. I'm assuming it's very similar where they operate in silos. So you get somebody
Yes.
that spends $60,000, $70,000 on a car and they expect to be taken care of, and then the service
Mhm.
department's just like, you didn't spend anything with us, so we're not doing you any favors. And that's
Exactly.
a huge, just like pitting people against each other, even within the business. And it's always the consumer that loses. And in the
Every
educational
single
side
time.
of thing, it's always the students that lose. And even then, is the consumers losing, because when you have less qualified technicians, and I'll apply this all trades across the board, when you have
Yep.
less capable people, it's going to be the consumer in the long run that their quality of life goes down. Powerline tech came out to my house at middle of winter, brand new little baby. I lost one phase of, so I've got, I believe it's the same in the stateside. You have
Sure.
240 volts to each house. One phase was gone, right? Okay, bye.
Okay.
Cutting in and out. And they're like, oh, well, it's with your house. And it's, dude, it's not in my house. There's no problem. Nothing's coming out of the meter. Getting a little excited here. Nothing's coming out of the meter. You know what it was? There was a corroded wire at the meter. And I even told the guy when he was here, I was like, dude, that wire shouldn't have corrosion on it. Like, let's fix that up. And he just, on the
Right.
nut there, tried to tighten. Oh, it's tight. The nut was tight because it was seized with a loose wire in the thing.
Exactly.
So, and so let's roll this back to nobody can afford a house. If you can't afford a house, you're living in that apartment. Nothing wrong with living in the apartment, but from the trades perspective, how do you do anything? So I was
Yeah.
fortunate to grow up where we had, like, it was a little 1 acre, it had been a hobby farm, ancient house,
Mhm.
fallen down and everything. But hey, I still had that space to go work on mom's car, right? My shop here is very small, can't even fit a car into it, but at least it's a shop. So my 3-year-old daughter can turn a lathe on and off, right? Like, I was
Exactly.
fitting her. Shout out to Lincoln Electric. They make welding helmets small enough to fit a 3-year-old. So that's
Yep.
pretty awesome. So she's very fortunate. She's going to have some hand skills that are not afforded to the people that can't have a small shop. And even then, let's talk manufacturers not making things that you can, like, they're scary to look at and scary to work on. And I know lots of people have told me stories where they just tried to change a battery and it cost them
Yeah.
$300 plus a tow because they just shorted something out and then the main fuses blow. And like, it's, they used to, you mentioned those old manuals, and I've got some, I think they were Motor Guide from the 40s and 50s. They go into
Yes.
such detail. They give you even like the part number on the light bulbs, where if you look up, when I had my kid, bought a car seat, right? Cool. The car seats don't tell, they just tell you all the ways to kill the kid, none of the ways to keep the kid alive or
Right.
unalive the kid. I don't know if the podcasts, if they're going to pick, you can use that part. They tell you what not to do, but then refer to your automotive manufacturer, refer to the owner's manual. And that thing points you back at the car seat manual, and there's no what to do. It's all just trying to avoid any type of liability, and there's no instruction on anything. And it's
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah, no, it
So
seems like everything's built to, obsolescence. It's all built for, planned obsolescence now. 100% on trying to fix anything anymore. I always joke and tell students like, hey, they're doing their best to keep average Joe from doing any DIY stuff whatsoever on their vehicle. And honestly, I was always of the opinion, I'm an open source guy. Like, if you can work on your own vehicle, more power to you. I don't think that the government should be coming in, letting the manufacturers decide, the corporations decide, you're not going to get a warranty unless you let our people work on it. I think that's kind of crazy. The right to repair
huge.
stuff's real big here in this country, and it's funny enough. It started literally this time around at John Deere of all places. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, you can't work on your combine that you just went into debt for $200,000 on. You're not allowed to touch that. But one of the things that you were just mentioning about the silos and all that kind of stuff. The nice part about being as old as I am and having been able to touch as many different areas in the dealership life is I get to share with students now life cycle of the customer, like what it actually looks like, what it should look like, and about silos. You know, hey, go and tell your manager, go and tell your service advisor, hey, here's what I've got. This is on you guys to make this decision for the customer, but you know, try to educate up chain also. I don't like it to just where like the technician is you're a technician, you can go grunt somewhere, go fix a car. I don't want to, hear back from you and that. I try to teach them, hey, you're a person, you deserve to be heard as well. When you come and you come with them with good information that's educational, they should at least listen to you. Whether or not they, actually make a decision off of that, they should still at least listen and be professional about it. And then basically at the end of the day, do you want that customer to come back? Would you like them to continue servicing at your dealership? Because I mean, if most GMs were pulled aside and given a proper view of what actually happens in the back of the dealership, because a lot of those guys come from sales. They don't come from the service side at all. That's a real downfall in our industry. It seems like that no one's ever tried to develop your fixed operations director or your service manager into a GM. It's always a sales side. It's always F&I guys that end up on that side. Sometimes it's terrible disservice to your customer because the service is the part that makes the money for the dealership. In most cases, new car sales, it's very, very slim margins on new car sales. And used cars is where all the money's at when you're dealing with used cars. But when it comes to actual monies and, fixed absorption 100%, it comes off the service side. So I always like to say, and there's a huge saying that sales sells the first vehicle, service sells every single vehicle thereafter. And when people finally get that in their heads, and if you can go to these dealerships that do a good job and they're doing a lot of gross, you'll find out that somebody has made that decision. We're going to opt for trying to keep the customer as long as possible. And I share with them books about it. One of the guys in Texas, Carl Sewell. So Sewell's a big name brand in Texas. They've got like 17 or 18 rooftops in Texas alone. That's all they have. They only deal and operate in Texas. But that's where the loaner vehicle started in this country, in America. The loaner vehicle started at Dallas, Texas Cadillac, and he started giving people loaners when they would come in for service. Here's a demo. Go drive this brand new car. And then the dealerships, the manufacturer started to kind of take note of that and was like, oh, well, they're killing it. They're doing a great job, right? And he wrote a book later on, and he didn't necessarily write it. It was ghostwritten for him, but they took all of his information and it's called Customers for Life. And it's like what tried to transform this industry a long time ago in that segment. And it's like they just keep forgetting and they always revert back to base operating system. Let's just take as much money as we possibly can. And like COVID was a perfect example of that. COVID destroyed everything. And then all of a sudden the automotive market, like they were selling used cars for like new prices. They were selling new cars for unbelievably, overpriced, way overpriced stuff. And then like Ford, to bring them back up, they were selling stuff that didn't have all the computers on board yet.
That was
And they were
crazy. Like
delivering them. I
to
don't know
me,
how they were
COVID
able to deliver some of that stuff.
Right? Like, COVID was to me like, corporations have always been about money. It's the way it is. Money makes the world go round. Like, I'm okay with that. But they used to pretend to care about the customer. And in the pretending,
Yes.
sometimes they accidentally did nice things for the customer. I'm being a little bit facetious. Like, I know there's been some businesses that are good, some not so good. But I really
Sure.
felt like during the COVID, that was when the quality, like, they stopped pretending to care. And it very clearly became all about the money. And like there's Ford shipping those parts without, or the cars without parts in them. And that was insane. And then there was the push. And so when I think of COVID, we were locked down in Canada for like 2 solid years where you could almost do
Hmm.
nothing. So it was really like 2020 to 2022, even 23, depending on kind of who you talk to around
Sure.
here. And I know it's different kind of based on anywhere you were in the world, right? But, yeah, it's wow, like, that was a huge one, and then still, even the parts availability since COVID
Hmm.
has been the parts are terrible, and maybe
Yes.
that's just why you can't get them is because they break so much, the factories are like, I don't know. Monroe shocks, I installed Monroe shocks in my mother's car
Hmm.
a year ago, and they're already leaking out as bad as the ones that had been on there from the factory. So it's like, as a technician, and then even as a teacher, what do you do? Like, it used to be 80,000 kilometers, which I think is 50,000 miles ish.
Yeah.
I'm a mechanic. I give estimates. All right. It's
Sure.
my wife's car has hit that. It's like, do I change to the struts on it or do I just leave them? Because they're still original. They're 10 years old, low mileage, but
Sure.
they're due. But if I'm only getting a year out of Monroe's, like, what do you do? And then
Yeah.
what do
You're almost
you
crazy to change them at that point.
Yeah, right? Or recommending stuff to a customer. There was a video online, it's a check engine Chuck video that he changed, I
Hmm.
think it was 6 knock sensors, and I show this one to my
Sure.
students because I'm really big on don't be a parts changer because you have to, be a parts changer because you want to.
Right.
Like, know how to diagnose the stuff and do it properly. He diaged it, and it was a knock sensor.
Hmm.
Then the shop put it in, and he had to go back, and it was 6 that he went through. And even I think half of them were aftermarket, half of them were AC Delco, bad
Yeah.
out of the box. So, and like, what is the
Yeah.
who
What's
pays
the
for
fix
that,
for that? Right.
right? Yeah, when it's
Yeah.
like the AC Delco, if you're just buying your parts off Amazon, sometimes you get what you deserve. I've done it too. Sometimes there's Nissan Titan 2010 fixing my old man's truck. Even from the local parts supplier, my cost was like $400 a sensor. A Rock Auto was 75. Needed 4 sensors, ordered 6. Got 4 of them that worked, sent 2 back. But
Yep.
how do you explain that to a customer? Or even like the crazy stuff where you're buying name brand stuff, but I've run into it with Chrysler products where if it's not the exact Mopar product, you can use a
Hmm.
really good name brand like an NTKO2 sensor, doesn't work. Has to be the Denso or whatever was
Sure.
OEM for that particular year, make, model.
Yeah, and some of that's the electronics themselves. Like some of that's the actual ECUs, and everything's getting to be a tighter margin on whatever it is that they're putting in as far as for it to be able to be compatible with that ECU. I've seen this also. The parts guys that are looking things up now sometimes too. Like when you're dealing with the O2 sensors on some cars, it's an air fuel ratio sensor. It's not an O2, and the parts book may not even have a air fuel ratio listed for it. So they just sell you a couple O2 sensors, an upstream and a downstream. And when you go to put it in, some of them are actually pinned where it still plugs in. Some
Which
are
is
not.
crazy.
And anyone's listening out there, if it's not pinned exactly like the one that you took out, you should start asking questions before you ever install it. Because once you install an electrical part, what ends up happening? Nobody wants it no more, right? They don't want it back. You've got a part now that you've used that doesn't work, and it's maybe even wrong. So that word to those out there, caveat emptor, buyer beware. If you buy that stuff and 100%, like you're saying, if you end up getting it like through an Amazon, that could be seconds. That could be factory seconds. I even installed the same thing you were just. This came up in a conversation in class the other day. Hey, was there anything you ever put into a vehicle that didn't fix it or like was a problem? I'm like, yeah, I did a tune up on a vehicle one time that came in. It rang when it came in the door. It was preventative maintenance, had like 95, 100,000 miles on it. I put all brand new components back on it and used AC Delco spark plugs. Has a dead miss. Now it's got 7 holes instead of 8. And I'm like,
Wow.
all I did was just put a tune up on it, like it was cap rotor wires and plugs. So I started going back through it and looking at it, and I found a dead hole and then go and check it out. And the spark plug is actually what was bad, and the spark plug looked fine. Looked like
Right?
nothing wrong. Visually it looked perfectly fine. I put an old one back in it, cylinder picks back up. And I'm like, okay, well, I call the parts house and tell them, hey, give me another spark plug over here. Like, what do you need one for? Did you drop one? Ha 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 ha. And I'm like, no, I wish I would have dropped it. It doesn't work. Like it literally, it's like this
Yeah,
firing pin has no sparks coming out of the end of it, right?
which is
So, and that was
insane.
one I got to share with them. And the other one was when laser iridium spark plugs first came out, it was like a real big thing. We were doing a tune up on a Lexus and bringing in it took laser iridium plugs. Parts house don't have them. We sold platinums to the customer, and the person up front thought, platinums probably okay. So we get platinums, we put them in there. They're not compatible. This thing barely ran. And I'm like, well, the only thing I changed was literally coil boots and the plugs. And I'm like, I'm betting on more than likely the plugs are what's going on here. So I took those 4 back out right away, put the regular laser iridium used ones back in, and it idled smooth as could be. And I'm like, you're going to have to find like actual laser iridium plugs for this thing in order to make it work. So I always teach them, hey, even though you just put a brand new component in and you think it's going to be okay, if it messes up as soon as you start it, just rewind everything and start back over again real quick. Don't just leave it that way. Don't try to, let it go. It's you can't do that. You have to work
Yes.
for the customer. So,
Okay. On that note, something I need to bring up. I don't know how many times I've seen stuff that's silicone back together. Like, guys, silicone is not an adhesive. At least use a PL adhesive or super glue, something. I don't condone that, but like if you're gonna do it, at least kind of do it right.
yep.
Plastic welders, they are not expensive on Amazon, and wow, do they ever work nice.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, there's
And
times the old Toyota Echoes had the purge valve right on the air cleaner, and that was
yeah, as
something
soon
that
as
the
you touched it or
dealerships,
looked at it wrong, it'd snap off.
right? So, like in that situation, super glue was stronger than the plastic was. Like, but why the lack of ability to use our brains in some systems? I agree that systems have to be in place because without one, we're all going in different directions, and the systems can make us more efficient. But when talking, and you were talking earlier about like training the people you work with, well, if I'm bringing a vehicle in for a check brakes, why? If I'm a service advisor, and I did this when I worked at smaller shops, customers
Sure.
complaining of a brake squeal, and I say, look, before I even bring this thing in, here's the price on pads, rotors, calipers. Here's your good, better, best. Like,
Yep.
is this okay? And sometimes I would get the like, I just need to know if I'm going to die and kill my family. And it's like, no problem. I can do your inspection,
Sure.
whatever. But why are we not at least giving them the heads up? This is what it may be. If you're in for an oil change, you want me to check your air filter. Well, if it's dirty, are we changing it? Like, how much dirt gets into engines? How many purge valves or other stuff? Was it the Equinoxes, the first style that had the ECMs right on the airbox, and every time you
Mhm.
moved it, you're right.
Yeah, you're
So
always
why,
moving stuff. Yep.
like pre-authorized stuff and like not
Sure.
stuff that's needed, right? And that's where we're getting a lot more digital. Our new safeties came out where okay, you buy your car, you got to get it safetied and or inspected. It's like
Sure.
don't know if there's. I know some states have the state inspections. That's all
We do.
digital now, and you know a lot of
Pennsylvania, where
folks.
I live, we have it. We have
Okay,
emissions and we have safety.
okay, I
Once a
was an
year.
emissions. You can see that on the back. I was the emissions inspector and the heavy duty, and that was fun,
Right.
right? And I mean, it's even that program though. Like I liked what it was about when you were actually sticking a pipe in the tailpipe. There was some stuff never should have passed, like, but it did because it wasn't polluting. And some stuff that I was like, this is great, and it would fail. Where they
Yeah.
then changed to just you plug it in, and there was problems with the machines where they wouldn't read Toyota ECMs. So there were some unscrupulous shops that were just taking. We had a conditional pass. Yeah, $450. You get a conditional pass. Well, that's not what it. You're supposed to fix it for that. And if they, anyways,
Exactly.
get me all fired up here. Where were we going with this? The emissions, the diagnostics. I don't know. Sidetrack here a little bit.
Pre-authorization. Pre-authorization.
Pre-authorization. Yes. That why? Why are we not doing a pre-authorization? Why are we not educating our customers? Like we have usually a lot of the check boxes of the green, the reds, the yellows.
Exactly.
I made some customers that followed me from different shops because I
Yeah.
would just go with them and go over their vehicle and say, look, this estimate's going to look terrible. It's not. I just picked out everything that I can see that may or may not possibly go wrong in the next 5 years. This is what
Exactly.
you need today. This is what you are going to want to budget for. And they would
Yep.
appreciate that because a huge thing for me, I'm a mechanic. I only make money if people keep their old cars. If they're always buying new cars, I mean, the new cars are kind of junky and there's a lot of warranty work, but I don't like doing warranty work or working at the dealership. So if I can
Sure.
keep a car, somebody in that car as long as possible, great for everybody, in my opinion, because what does a new car cost? Well, I was trying to
Dang
price
it
out,
cheap. Even the
right?
cheap was expensive.
30 grand in Canada is what you're
Mhm.
looking at for the lowest end cars. And then if you want AC, ha ha ha, now you have to get the 18-inch rims and 10 grand worth of other stuff, not just AC in your basic car.
Exactly right.
So, yeah, is any car worth keeping? No, you drive a brand new truck off the lot for 100 grand and now it's worth 70. So you just lost 30 grand. So if you take
Easily.
your old truck and you put 10 grand into it or 5 or whatever that transmission may cost, was it worth it? No. But we want to look at it from a cost of ownership in the long run, not just is the vehicle worth it? Because nothing's worth it. The difference between an asset and a liability. Have you ever, I don't know if this bothers you, but when people, oh, I just invested in a car, you lost money. It was a bad investment. You might as well have
Right.
taken it to the slots. It's not worth it.
Very few cars are investments.
Right? But even then, so if you have the money for an investment car, you don't need any financial advice from me. I promise you that. Because
Exactly.
that's a lot of money. But and even then, okay, guys that buy those cars and hang on to them forever, if you put them into a decent company in the stock market, yeah, you're going to make more than that. But regardless,
Exactly.
I'm sidetracked a little bit again. Keeping people in their cars and just kind of earning their trust by working for them, like where everybody
Exactly.
wins, right? Because stuff
That's
does come
exactly
up,
it.
and I like that. I like winning scenarios.
Sure. So I'll see your pre-authorized services and I'll arrange you a, hey, if you bring a vehicle in that's got a noise, take time and have a technician ride with that customer. Because advisors, a lot of times that doesn't happen. And it really should, especially if it's like they got the time to do it. Like, hey, have them take a 10-minute, quick trip around the block with somebody to listen for that noise. 9 times out of 10, it's something fairly easy that they can figure out. And if it's not, even if it's not, at least they heard it or they can hear it when the customer drove the vehicle. Then they have a pretty good idea of what they're fixing. Because I can't tell you how many noises I ever fixed for free because the person's like, that's not the noise I was talking about. Well, what do you mean? It's any noise. Like, yeah, I could hear it. It was very plain. People get like noise blind and, nose blind to their cars and all that kind of stuff. You take it driving, you're like, oh, yeah, that's blatantly obvious that someone didn't put the jack all the way back in the back of the car and I can hear it every time I hit a bump. Well, that wasn't what I was talking about. I was talking about a squeak when I turned to the right after, it sit overnight and I backed out of my driveway. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do with that, But if an advisor is smart about it and they don't waste people's time, they go, hey, you know what? Take 5 minutes with me and let somebody that could drive around with you and listen for that noise. Because honestly, if they ain't got 5 minutes to be driving a technician around, they shouldn't be worried about the noise anyways.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think
How
that's
many?
fair.
100%. How many of us as techs though take the time to try to help train our service advisors? And I
That's
don't
very
know,
few.
right? And we don't have any like service advisor training programs, like just broad post-secondary ones
Sure.
anywhere near where I'm at. So a lot of them are they're either interested in cars or just looking for a job and they get thrown in there and
Exactly.
they're getting
Or they've
pushed
worked
down with,
retail somewhere else. They've sold clothing. They've been at Kohl's. Like one of the places I left, the service manager that they ended up hiring, all he'd ever done his entire life was retail, and he worked at a Kohl's previously before
wow.
they brought him in. And I'm like, that's all well and good, and I'm sure he can talk to customers all day long, but he's got a huge learning curve getting ready. He's going to have to climb up, and it's going to be slippery because
Yeah.
all the nomenclature is different, the vocabulary is different. You're dealing with a different type of an employee that you're dealing with in the back. Like most of the people that work in retail, most of them, I'll do the same thing, rabbit ears with that one. Most of them can at least speak to somebody, right? That's getting worse, but
Usually. Yeah.
most of them can. Some
Yes,
technicians cannot, and that's okay
that's
also
accurate.
because people that tend to like things don't really jive too well with people. People that like people can't usually work on things. That's totally understandable.
Yeah.
It's
And
just
shout
it's
out.
just ingrained into us.
That's true. Shout out to retail workers. That's not an easy job. Like I did
I
it for
call it
like
dealing with
6 months.
Gen Pop.
What's that?
I call it dealing with the Gen Pop, general population.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. I had a guy that I was working at a hardware store for a discount. That was the most expensive discount I've ever gotten in my life. But
Sure.
I spent well over what I made. Sold him a hose for a dust collector, and it was just 25-foot hose. He was complaining that it wasn't 25 feet. Well,
Right.
apparently the look on my face, he just asked for my manager, and I actually got a tape and pulled that out. And guess what? It was 27 feet, not
I was gonna say it's
25. But he
probably
didn't
slightly
follow.
over.
Yes, it was. But that goes back. Okay, so in training our service advisors and just dealing what you might call a squeak, I might call a rattle, and my wife might call turn the radio up.
Exactly.
Or even little things that I don't think she's going to listen to this. I don't know. Well, she was driving me nuts because she couldn't hear any noises on the car. Needed hearing aids. As soon as she got
Yeah.
that, she goes, wow, no wonder you're always so like, because I'm not telling you what's going on
Yeah.
with the car. So where you
Yeah,
and
and
I
that kind
like,
of stuff, that happens over time, right? Like the hearing loss or like, that kind of thing
that's
happens
it.
over time. So a lot of times people that do have that don't realize that they have it for the longest of times unless they go in and they're actually checked for it. That's 100% accurate.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. She had me go in to get checked because she thought I was going deaf. So
Sure.
that was
Well, as long
awesome. But
as
the
one
reason
of you are going right, that's all that matters.
right? That's it. But again, so the reason I bring that up is just the differences in perceptions. And then you
100%.
just, the differences in customers as well and kind of what they expect. Weirdest noise I ever had was a pinging sound, like a kind of with a more of a hollow ting
Sure.
into it.
Like fish lips.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Right.
I can't quite get that in. But it was a can of Raid. Lady had nothing in her
Yes.
car. Sweetest old lady was behind the seat, rolling forward and hitting
Yep.
the steel frame. That was it.
Exactly.
Right. But I've
Yeah,
also had
the golf balls in the door panel. I always love the golf ball in the door panel. Every time I hit the brakes, I heard this. And then I
that's
take
it.
off again and hear, I'm like, huh, wonder what that could be. And sure enough, it's like in the passenger side. So it's just far enough away that they can't visually see it and they can't touch it while it's doing it, right? To safely drive the car, but they can't tell. And it's like, oh, if you just had one person in the vehicle with you, you'd be able to find that pretty quickly, but they
Right.
can't. And they're
So,
not trained to think that way like a technician might be over years, right?
right now, question for you: if they were to take shop classes and put them back in the high schools, and they've ripped them out of about half the high schools here and all out of all of our grade school stuff, how much
Exactly.
money would the general population save if they had just had, like, if I'd gone to some home ec classes and knew how to sew and cook and that kind of stuff, and just
Sure.
like across the board for everybody, if you knew how to just lay a small cement pad, you knew some basic diagnostic stuffs, like what would that little bit of investment, and that's where I have a problem, Canada and
Billions of
US,
dollars.
right? But the government thinks in 4-year terms or
Hmm.
2, depending on how where you're
Sure.
at and whatnot. But 4
Yeah,
years at a time.
America's is 2, 4, and then 6.
Okay, I didn't
So,
know about the 6. So
yeah,
I've completely
senators
what's
get 6-year terms.
good to
Congress
know,
is 2 years, and then presidential is every 4. So you're right, though. They're trained themselves to do that, and that's one of the issues with some of these systems, the way that they're set up. It's not agrarian any longer like it used to be. Like they're building these giant cities, and you've got city councils now coming in and telling people that whatever communist thing that they pop up with next, right? Whatever the flavor of the week is, like you can't do this, you can't do that. It's like, what are you guys talking about? Like,
homeowners associations. What even? Okay,
perfect,
yeah. I just
perfect one right there.
so here's how the example that I always give to students, because I don't ever like one side, the other, whatever. They both got their pros
Sure.
and cons. I really don't care. So every time I
I'm
turn
the
the news
same way.
off, because right, it's like drinking bleach. Oh, just a little bit. No, a little bit of bleach is not good for you.
Right.
So I turn it all off until it's about time to vote, and then I do my research and do that. So okay, whatever. But our current premier, which is like a congressman or senator for Ontario, he's real big on we're going to save money, right? Well, what does that mean? Cuts to healthcare, cuts to education,
Yeah.
and cuts to services like police, fire, EMS. So, kind of some of the basic stuff. Well, the way I equate that, it's like cutting off body parts to sell them. Yeah, you get a real short term. Sure, I got whatever for this finger on the black market. Now it's
Sure.
gone. How many body parts can you lose before you got nothing left to sell?
Exactly. So America did something like that a while back under Republican Congress, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is great." Newt Gingrich, got a contract with America back in the '90s. It was actually during Bill Clinton. So Congress, they're going to come in, they're going to cut a bunch of spending over so many different years, and all of a sudden, you'll never believe it, Dennis. They had a surplus of money. They never had a surplus of money. It was all on paper. It was all joke. Like it was all like tricky mathematics and like voodoo economics, right? A long time ago, that was a big thing here. That's voodoo economics. That is voodoo economics there. If they're just doing math to flip around the paperwork and, fix the profit and loss sheet for the country, none of it was real. It's like now, none of it's real now. Like the money that we make is not even real money.
No.
Like any of that stuff it's all built on a promise that says it right on the dollar bill. It says it right on it, like this is a promissory note, basically, that we guarantee this is worth what we say it's worth. And the reason we're able to do that is because we buy and trade oil all over the planet, and we use these dollars to back up other countries with. And I told my wife one time, I was like, if the world ever got sly to what America actually does, the way that the monetary system works, I was like, they'd be hanging people in the streets all over the place because of the way that they do this. I was like, this none of this stuff is accurate. Not a bit of it's accurate. And
Yeah,
I'm like, it's
and to
crazy. And
me,
I'm the same way with you. Like if I'm in a audience of students, I never say a word about most things. But if someone asks me what my political beliefs are, it's anarcho capitalism.
okay, I like that. I'm gonna
100%
have to look that one up.
anarcho capitalism means I
Anarch
get to make my money and take care of my family and screw everybody else.
I like that. That's fair.
Because if we
So
were
I
all
don't.
that way, like that's literally how America kind of started. It was all governments were local. Everything was local. It was no large, overbearing, overarching, multiple government systems, right? It was you had basically two. You had your local area, and then you had kind of your state. And that was it. And the states that had all these rights and all this kind of stuff, they could do kind of what they wanted. They were laboratories, right? It's been equated to that. So basically, it was anarchy at home. You were anarchist is Greek for leaderless. It's all it means. Everyone gets freaked out about, oh, anarchy. Oh, you mean like murder in the streets? Like, no, not really. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just leave me and my family alone and we'll take care of ourselves. If we need help, then we'll come to you. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
So it's like that's how it was built, though. I mean, it was rugged individualism. It was going across the prairies. Like I live in Pennsylvania now. I marvel at the men and women that took them just to get this far into the country and live in basically the wilderness. Like where I'm at even now is only an hour outside of Philly. It's wilderness. Like it's boreal forest all around me, everywhere you go. So it's really wild. And to think that they used to take wagons across this with horses pulling them, and that we're just, miles away from the Amish. The Amish do it every day. We drove past a team of mules today actually plowing a field, and the guy was out there with him and his wife and his family, like working the land. My wife's like, "Holy cow, did you see that?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "That's exactly what they used to do.
it's
They didn't
insane what
have
they can do.
machinery." Yeah, like
They
they
have
literally, it was like eight. They had 8 mule out there and he was just, on a single plow might have had 3 plows on it, just kicking up dust, man, and rolling across the field. I was like, "That's pretty interesting to watch right there. That's pretty cool."
I love there's a video on YouTube of them. It was an Amish community moving a barn. And it's
Sure.
just it takes them not a whole lot of time, but it's the whole
No.
community out and just up and over and down and just by working together. Where
Yep.
our culture really divides us and it keeps us all broken and we're
Yeah.
housebroken and
Keeps
can't
us
afford
angry at
anything
each
and
other, and
right?
it's basically it's meant to keep you looking down and at each other instead of looking up with the things that are happening, right? Like,
Yes.
you mean that there's people that really would much rather starve me and my family and invite a ton of people that are not supposed to be here, like just like that, like millions of people at one time. Like, huh, I can't believe that would ever happen. Why would someone do that? And then you start looking into why they do it. It's just money. It's all money changing hands all over the place. The corporation gets a really great bump on being able to basically effectively use slave wages and slave labor to be able to operate. And, it was supposed to be in our country a long time ago that you had these background checks were going to take place where there was no way that they would ever hire somebody that was in the country that didn't have at least a visa or a green card. Well, that's completely out the window and it never really worked. Like they just hire whoever and what to do whatever, and that was the end of it. It's like, well, that's kind of strange, but you're exactly right. It's always let's pit these people against these people and then see how this, works out. While we all get to do whatever we want, fly around on private jets, not even private jets a lot of times. Now it's just government jets and they just kind of fly over the areas of the country where everybody works and puts the money into the till and gets zero back
Right.
out of it.
And it's
Wild.
crazy because even a lot of the people in the systems that are higher up don't even know that they're part of the system. Where it's like
No,
you talk to them
no.
and you're just, well, why is it this? Well, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Why? Why?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
so. As a teacher, I love because I hope I don't come off as an anti-consumer or anti any of the stuff that it's funny, as being someone, I like to think of myself as kind of going down the middle. So I usually tick off people on either end.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
It's just think, right? I'm
Yep,
going to try to, hopefully I don't knock everything out. I got something that I'd like to show the audience over here. I'm in
sure.
my shop. It's a bloody mess, but check, check that out. You'll notice that the lovely googly eyes, that's a
Yep,
metal lathe from the late 1800s
sure.
that I bought for $200. And guess what it
Exactly.
does? It cuts metal, and I've fixed it up. And this is where I love having the trades. And it's like, if anybody asks me, like, what would you tell your daughter to do? She can do whatever she wants. And honestly, I think life is too short to just go get a job. Like, find something you love
Sure.
doing and figure out a way to make money at it. But while you're doing that, if
Exactly.
you're undecided, pick up a trade. When I was going back to teachers college, I was making a lot more than minimum wage working on cars on the weekends. And
Mhm.
the only reason I can afford kind of the nice stuff other than just my house is I'm able to generate money outside of just work and
Exactly.
fix stuff like that. My mill
Multiple
over there
revenue
is
streams.
right. That thing's over 40 years old. I got
Yeah,
sewing machines in the house that are over 100 years old. And are they as fancy as the new stuff? No, but do they work? Yes. And are they going to outlast almost all the new stuff? Yes. My truck, I live in the Rust Belt. My truck's a 2001 Silverado. Why is it still around? It was oil sprayed from new and it was taken care of.
yeah,
Right? Like that's, and unfortunately now with all the modules, and so let's bring up some of the counterpoints as well. Safety. Okay, you're correct. Like some of the sensors and reverse cameras and airbags. Like if you've ever
sure.
never been into a serious accident, I once watched. I was in an Explorer, and I don't know if you remember the ones from the 2000s where you were sitting
I
in it, you
do.
would sneeze and it would roll.
I do.
Watching that metal come right up my face, I would have been nice if there was an airbag there. So I do get some of like the safety portions, the safety things would. There's definitely a place for them. But let's look at the 310S side, the truck side of things before COVID. I don't know what it is now, but last I worked at a truck dealer, it was like 2015, 16. Brake drum. They weighed like 100 pounds and
Yeah,
they were $34 Canadian. Whereas an equivalent like a car brake drum was going to be close to $100+ at that time. So
sure.
why is one that is over 100 pounds compared to one that's 10 pounds so cheap? Every single truck used it as a 16.5 inch. So I'm talking like the big rigs, right?
Exactly.
16.5 inch. And the only ones that didn't use it were the vocational trucks that needed a heavier duty one. ABS sensors, there's like two of them. I know there's a little
Yep.
bit more now, but it's you buy a truck, you buy the engine for it. And I love Toyota. You need do an oil change on a Toyota, you need a 14 millimeter wrench. Any Toyota ever. Why are there so many drain plugs? Like, why is
Right.
everything so? Let's talk about modules for a second here. So I've just recently gotten into Raspberry Pis and I love them as
Yes.
a teaching tool because I'm building modules on the bench. Check out Dennis and the Machines, where
Right.
it's like a PCM. And I've taught the students like 10, 15 lines of code, and I'm able to
Exactly.
use a switch to operate and control things. And why? Love it. Absolutely love it.
It's my
So
box
then
of
what?
teaching things behind me that I used to bring to class all the time. Electronics, electronic breadboards, you're speaking my language, man. I love it because
Right?
that's exactly
So
what I was bringing. I was letting them do Arduinos. Hey,
love that.
Go to Python, go to ChatGPT and have it run you a little code and stuff it in there and see what it does.
Right?
And they're making them do all kinds of things with LED lights and everything. It's
Open
cool.
source, Speeduino,
Exactly.
like they make BCMs and stuff. And so this is where then with the manufacturers, it's like I have a Buick LaCrosse, it's a 2012. The BCM on that unobtainable. And then when you go to the
Hmm.
scrapyard, you can't reflash them. Why?
Sure.
And then when you type that into ChatGPT, oh, it's for safety and security, and it's
Hmm. It's for planned obsolescence and it's to keep
yes,
the average Joe from doing it.
yes, that is 100% it. So that's where it's like, yeah,
So
I
when I
don't want to
was
be anti-corporate, but corporates are anti-consumer, and that's something that's
20,
just
exactly 2015, to dovetail exactly into what you're saying, I was at Volkswagen at a Volkswagen dealership working. I was able to get myself in there in about a month. They were able to like check me out, make sure I knew what I was doing. And I think I had 5 ASEs at the time. I've been working in the industry about 25 years. So I got my own team. So I had three guys. It was, I dispatched to them. They were my team. Whatever, we did, it was on me. And basically, like at that same time, Volkswagen corporate came in and was like, "Hey, your guys' scan tools are going to not be able to VIN write anything that comes from a junkyard." They took that access out of the Otis system. And then later it was basically, by the way, like if you try to clear a code on a vehicle that you've not repaired anything, it won't let you clear the code completely. So, like, you could actually use it for like diagnostic purposes, but it would not let you just bring a vehicle in and clear the code. It had to be, you had to run the monitor afterwards and make sure it didn't come back for it to be okay for it to be leaving the shop. So I'm like, wow, that's interesting because it was all really stemmed from a they're trying to run parts as well, right? Like parts has to be profitable and they got to make money. To try to keep average Joe from just bringing in a module and having us write it, electronically erase the problem, and then put some new information in it. And then the other one is like, hey, what if this thing damages our scan tool? 'Cause that was the other side of it. Sometimes when you plug modules and you do plug and play stuff, every now and again, the actual computer is what takes the hit. It's the scan tool. And those scan tools at the dealership are $10 to $13,000 according to what all, came with it when you bought it. You could buy a bare machine for about 9 grand, American. So it was like I kind of seen on both sides of it, but you're 100% accurate. A lot of the places went to this. So, have you familiar with the Adam Smith on the Wealth of Nations was a book that was written right as America was coming into this revolutionary period, is Austrian economics. So the guy was he was a Scottish economist. So Adam Smith writes on the Wealth of Nations, and basically in the middle of it is it talks about actual capitalism, not what we have now. Not it's capitalism now is not actually capitalism. The things that they're doing is a joke. When you're marking things up thousands of percent, that's not capitalism. That's greed, and that's gouging people is what that is. We started doing it in this country a long time ago where it was perfectly fine for somebody to come along and basically just flat foot rape people on price. And oh, we're calling that capitalism now. That's a joke. It used to be if you did something over 100% markup, that actually had a negative connotation to it. And you were ripping people off. Now it's nothing like that. Like if you don't do a minimum of 100% markup on something and you're a business, you can't even make it anymore with all these extra hands in your pocket as a business owner, right?
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, it's
Yeah.
like it's always back to that whole regulatory thing, the bureaucracy, all of it. It's just layers of weight that's weighted upon the business owner that can't actually service the customer in that case. But to watch that kind of stuff happen in real time. Now, this is during Dieselgate also. Like I worked at Volkswagen during Dieselgate and I watched them come in and say, you guys, it's going to be great for techs because here's why those vehicles that are older, you're going to have 16 hours in retrofitting those and putting DPFs on them, putting new software in them, putting a new PCV system on them, all this stuff, right? That never happened. Those are the ones that they bought back and they crushed and they run the bleach through the engine and, burn the engine up and got rid of them. They just crushed them. Then it was like, well, the ones that, there was 4 levels to it. So like those were the really bad ones. Those are the ones that are going to take the most time. The next step was like 12-hour cars. The next one was like 5-hour cars where we're going to have to put a DPF on it. That was really all we had to do. We could software it and put a DPF. And then the brand new ones, which is the ones they basically kept the most of, was literally a firmware update. That's all it was. So to watch them go through this, and I didn't agree with most of what happened on the corporate side and also the governmental side, and this criminality of the guy's got $1 billion, thing around his neck. And if he lands in certain countries, they're going to put him in jail and extradite him back to a certain country and all this. I'm not for any of that kind of crap either. But like they were doing that, like while I was working at Volkswagen, which was wild to watch because they came in the parts department, the guys were told, you're taking all the Das Auto stuff off the shelves. The big banner that's up in the service drive that literally had like the blue earth on it, and it was like their campaign for like clean diesel and all this stuff.
Right.
Ripped it down, rolled it up, and stuffed it in a box to be sent back over to Wolfsburg. It was the wildest thing I ever seen, man. Like I'm lucky enough, I still have one of the hats that says Das Auto on it because you can't buy them any longer. If you do, you're getting them off eBay somewhere because they took them right off the shelves.
Wow.
They're
Didn't know
embarrassed.
that.
They was embarrassed, and I get it. I understand. But, like, the whole thing was everyone was doing it. Like,
Right.
shortly thereafter, a bunch of other German companies got hit on it too. There's a
Well,
bunch
and
of other
that's
companies that's been doing it for years.
right. All and our domestics over here in North America, it's not necessarily on the emissions, but on safety issues where it's like, it's just cheaper to pay the lawsuits than to fix it, right? And
That's
yeah,
true. Sometimes it is. Are you
it's
familiar with
awful.
the PT Loser? that Chrysler piece of junk that they built a long time ago.
Yep,
Now,
the
luckily,
bathtub on wheels.
basically, yeah, like it was supposed to be this, throwback to the '50s era, and it's a modernized, little like a Chevy did it with the HHR. They were kind of okay, kind of ugly too, but the those PT losers, like if anybody ever looked up, EPA sticker on that vehicle actually called that vehicle a truck, and everybody's like, "Well, is that because it's got a hatch in it?" And that wasn't the only reason. The other reason was that 2.4 liter that they stuck in that vehicle wouldn't pass emissions for a vehicle that was a car. So they
Right.
had to kind of roll it into its own little category, and somewhere, somehow, some money changed hands because we all know that that's exactly, the skids don't move unless they're greased, right? Like that's exactly what happened. They would never be able to convince me that's not what happened. And sure enough, to this day, that vehicle, if you ever find one, it literally lists that it's a truck.
Yeah,
EPA sticker says it's a
but
truck.
an Escape is not a truck. It's like
Right.
it's the size of a car. But if you look up
Right.
and I'm sure you probably have, but the CAFE standards, the corporate
Mhm.
average fuel economy,
Yeah.
where it's like, yeah, they had different standards for the cars and the trucks, so everything became a truck, so it didn't have to meet the same stringent standards. And
Yep.
trucks aren't even trucks; they're glorified minivans. You can fit a sheet of plywood in a minivan, not in a truck anymore.
Mhm.
But you can pay $80,000-$90,000 for that glorified mini. Like I just, so let's go back to the environmental stuff for a second there.
Yeah.
How is it better for the environment for my BCM and my Buick to die, and then I have to buy a whole new car instead of just keeping that one together? And where I started questioning this when I had that emissions testing stuff,
Mhm.
I think it was a 93 Silverado that I owned, that the parts per million output was
Sure.
lower than on a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. It was a little four-banger Cavalier or Sunfire at the
Sure.
time.
Yeah,
Explain that
exactly.
one.
Yeah.
And why is
Make
it that
square
every
that
time,
math, huh?
right? And when you increase the emissions devices on a vehicle, the fuel economy always goes down. But when you
Mhm.
burn more fuel, you inherently output more carbon. And I get that there's okay, we're balancing things. I get that, but these are just some of the questions that I like to ask, or that big EV
Sure.
push that seems to be failing a little bit now. And it's not that I'm against EVs, but I think one of the problems that we're having is the people making all these decisions are so out of touch. And it doesn't take that much money to become out of touch. Like I know some
You're
even
exactly right.
engineers that were like just normal folks, and they went through engineering, worked their way up the corporate ladder. And I mean, they're making, I would love to make that money, but they're like 200 grand a year, 300 grand a year US, and totally out of touch with just with the average Joe. Or even some of the generational differences you'll just get. It comes back to the houses where it's just like, yeah, you were able to buy a house in, going to give away my age here. I was born in 90. My old man was working for Ford on the line. He was a foreman of the line, I believe, at the time. He bought a brand new XLT Lariat Ford pickup for a third of his salary. So
Yeah.
something was like he was making like 50 grand a year and the car was like 18, or the truck was like 18.
Sure.
So by those numbers, and that I equate that with like an average trades job, just very roughly, right? So if a truck now costs for that same XLT Lariat premium model, you're like 100 grand. So you got to
Yep.
make $300,000 to have that same standard of living. And that doesn't include the 3% tax increase every year on just every different thing and all the
Sure.
extra taxes. Still waiting for that war tax to go away, right? Like,
It's not going
yeah,
to.
it's, you
That's the
don't
only thing,
say.
they just keep popping more wars off, right?
Yes, that's exactly it. So that
Yep.
everybody forgets about other things. Oh, there's a
Yeah.
war now, or
The
like all
war
this
machine is
AI.
in full swing.
Right? And it's like, that's this crazy economy, the voodoo economics that you're talking about, where RAM that I built a computer in 2024,
Mhm.
and I think I spent like $300, $400 for 96 gigabytes of RAM. And I was, wow, that's
Sure.
so much. And it's like, ha, that was the best investment ever. Unfortunately, I need a computer with RAM in it, but it's like 2-3 grand now to buy that same amount of RAM
Yeah.
for AI centers that don't exist, for with money that doesn't exist, with infrastructure that doesn't exist, like all a promise on a promise on a promise
Sure.
on a promise, and we're paying 3 grand for RAM.
So that's a good segue into this, data center thing if you got more time to speak this evening.
For
The
you,
data center
absolutely.
thing Data centers are huge, huge news right now in America, and I know a couple people that are living kinda where, like, near Google was putting up in a place called New Albany over in Ohio. One of the guys over there, his mother, I think, had just now sold some of the land after his dad sadly had passed away. He was a staunch person, "Well, I'm not giving up my land. I'm not selling to them. I don't care what kind of money that they're trying to do." he passed away, and I'm pretty sure that that's what ended up happening. Is the land ended up being sold. It got sold to somebody. Let's put it that way. But long story is like data centers are really big in the news now. Flock cameras. It was leaked. I don't know, about probably 2 months ago now. I think I seen it on the X that about 90,000 flock cameras were literally just spying on Americans all over the place and being loaded directly to the internet. Like, no filters, no anything, no one knew what was going on, but, like, a lot of people have a pretty good inkling that Ring cameras, all this other stuff, basically, that's one of the reasons why the governments are pushing so hard for these data centers, especially with, what was it? I can't remember the guy's name. That's sad. The guy that ended up finding out with the flash drive, took all the information out of the what was it? The NSA. So Ed, I know
I
it's gonna
can't
come
help
to
with
me.
that. It's
I know it's gonna
staying
come
out
to
of
me.
the news. It's
Yeah,
kind of
but
hard to know all these names.
he's been out of the news for a while too. It doesn't matter anyways. It'll come to me at some point here while I'm talking about it, I'm sure. So basically, he comes up and he starts telling everybody, "Hey, the government's like spying on you. Like they're looking at everything. They're spying on their allies even. Like this was during Obama in our country. So everyone's freaking out and they say, "Oh, I can't believe this is happening." But there's a lot of people that now, and rightly so, are kind of looking backwards at all this going, "Hey, why is it exactly that they need?" And they were calling them server farms, by the way, and now they've went to data centers. "Oh, we're gonna build a data center." Well, they just dress up the word, right? Like, they change it around. Like, yeah, everyone used to ask, "Why do they need a server farm? Why do they need all these things?" And now it's like, well, why do they want to buy all this land up to do data centers? It's like, what exactly is it that they're keeping? And it's no secret really that they've been taking all kinds of information, phone lines, whatever, using some technologies that just turn stuff inside your house into a speaker, by the way. And it's
Every
like,
smart device,
yeah, every smart device automatically has a speaker on it, but like you can listen to people through their Wi-Fi. People don't realize that, but
right?
it's been talked about and been given away as a source and method from one of our what are those things called? And it is ICs, one of those ICs, right? But that's the thing, it's like these data centers and like with AI and I get asked all the time, "Well, what all's coming into vehicles? Like, why is it that they're trying to have so much data capability inside the vehicle?" And I'm like, It's for autonomous driving. Like, once they get to the place where the vehicle will do 1 gigabit per second, which is what they've been working on for 15 years now for just Ethernet, and they basically doing that over 2 wires in the vehicle. So, like, they will be that fast and they will be that good with just basically a fourth of a Cat 4 cable. They'll be able to move that much data in a car. And I'm like, once they're able to do that, that vehicle is almost sentient at that point because it can make decisions so quickly that it seem like it's intelligent. And I'm like, that's where they're really going with that because they would like to be able, you type in a number and an address where you want to go, and the vehicle just takes you there, and they claim it's for safety, it's for comfort, and all these other things. But those who get really safe and really comfortable, a lot of times end up losing their liberty.
You are 100% on that, and it's I got mixed emotions on that because I want to preface this with my wife was in a really bad car accident in 2018, has not been the same. A guy just looked for some documents that he said that he
Sure.
dropped, and he was going, what was this, about 45 miles an hour, 60 kilometers an hour.
Yep.
Didn't even hit his brakes, right into the back of her. She was in a little
Sure.
G5. It smashed the car in front of her. That's how hard she was hit.
Yeah.
So is full autonomous the answer? Maybe not. But if it had that radar cruise or that automatic braking,
And
even if it didn't
emergency
prevent the
braking. Yep.
accident, right? Because I'm all about like, give me an old manual vehicle, no electronic, nothing. Like I like being in charge of it. Give me a standard. But
Sure.
I I trust computers more than I trust people. Because even though that computer may be spying on me, like it's how many times do you see a young girl just driving coffee here and phone here and dog on the lap, or young guys racing and just doing really
Sure.
dumb stuff that could cost somebody their life, and a life is just gone like that. So is autonomous the answer? Maybe not. But once you've had an experience like that, it
Yeah,
changed my
exactly.
perspective on some of the assistance.
Yeah, it touches your
However,
life.
yeah, right? But then at the same time, I read a news article about Tesla being able to, they couldn't quite have the car, they repoed it, they couldn't have it drive itself back yet, but they
Mhm.
basically were able to unlock it, back it out of the spot, and load it onto the tow truck for the repo guy.
Yeah.
Like, uh, I really don't like where that's going, or where now hackers can get into your vehicles and they
Yeah.
can control the steering, they can control everything. Like there's no mechanical backups on things.
No.
So that's yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that. And the
Yeah.
whole with the EV, with it being like in Canada, you were basically $60,000 to be able to afford one. My wife and I
Sure.
have never owned new cars, and I'm a professor, she's a teacher, and teachers make pretty good money in Canada.
Sure.
And that's not a slight at all to teachers in the US. I have a lot of respect for especially some of the inner city ones that like no money they make and they just pour their heart and souls into
Yep. Give their
students.
entire
But there's a
lives to it.
right? That's a whole look up a picture of a government funded classroom and one that the teachers have funded themselves and like, wow, but that's a whole nother subject. And where was I going with this? Because now
Uh,
I'm totally sidetracked.
it's about the AI thing. It's about,
Yeah,
autonomous. But honestly, to dovetail into that, I made a post in the podcast group on Facebook a while back. Bosch already had been working on this too, but like the big thing was Brembo is coming out with basically dry braking. So no hydraulics whatsoever, only with actuators, only with electronics, and only with computers. And there's some really good name guys in there that was like, I don't know if I like where that's going. And like you just mentioned, I trust computers more than I trust people sometimes. And honestly, like for braking and for what it can help with the brakes on a vehicle and what it can do with them, I'm all for it as far as the safety aspect is. But I don't like the fact that if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, can something come in, some government entity, some, extra layer come in and lock my brakes up so my vehicle doesn't move until somebody wants it to move, right? Because
that
that's
answers
where that
yes.
that's where that goes, right? And
Yep.
I'm of the same mindset set. Like I would like it for like performance, I would like it for like safety and all that kind of stuff, but I do not want somebody being able to get into it and do things that's nefarious with it, like locking the brakes
Yes.
up while I'm driving at highway speeds, or locking one
Right?
wheel up or two wheels on one side of the vehicle to crash the vehicle when I'm driving at speed, right? Because it's
Yeah.
people are like, that's being that's being paranoid. No, not really, because there are people out there that actually believe those things, and they actually are thinking about those things right now to do to the general public. So especially
Yeah.
if you know
Well,
things you're not supposed to know. So it's not like it
yeah.
can't happen.
No, you're so right. And that's now like if you wanted to kidnap somebody, you just hack the car and lock
Yeah,
them
with
in and drive the
flippers, with
car. And
whatever, yeah, all you need is a radio signal.
yeah, which it's crazy, and it's so hard for us as technicians to get in to reprogram a key,
Mhm.
but the guys that are stealing cars can go up with an antenna to your door. One guy's there and it broadcasts a signal. It's almost easier for people to steal a new car than it is to steal the older cars.
Yeah,
Like that's crazy, and I know that on like it's not actually, but it seems that way, to where they can just get your key signal and duplicate it,
it
which
is,
is
and
just
they
it's
can.
insane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as a lot of times that, one of the things that come up a lot is, like, along the same lines of that same, autonomous vehicles and where's all this going, and, like, fisheye cameras inside the vehicles now to watch your pupils and see if you're drowsy or see if you're panicked. There's a guy that put a video on YouTube, like, recently of a hopped inside of a Ford pickup truck, late model, went to go get in it, acted like he was in some accident and, someone else was, but he was trying to drive them somewhere, and the computer seen his face through that camera, wouldn't let him put it in gear. The vehicle would start, it ran, but it wouldn't go in gear because he looked like he was like terrorized or he was in terror,
right.
right? So I'm like,
What if
back to
someone
this
needs to get out
stealing,
of a situation?
right? And then back to the stealing thing, this come up, and it's like people can use a flipper, or they can use any type of thing that can transmit, right? They were breaking into vehicles by going up and putting it next to the headlamp and breaking into the Wi-Fi of the vehicle through the headlamp, like through the CAN system. And they were getting in that way to the vehicle and unlocking it, getting inside of it, and then basically, it's like you were saying, finding a way in through the system, hacking it, and then all the firewalls are down. Then you can just start the vehicle and take off in it. Like it's crazy scary out there, and I don't know, it's not going to slow down any.
No, well, society's not willing to give up its creature comforts, right? Like, how many people are on these things posting about how these things are watching you, but
Yeah.
they're still on them, right? Like, it's
It's
your
it's
smart
funny you say
TV,
that. I always joke. I'm like, "Hey, we're carrying our actual monitors around with us. Like
yeah,
we carry our monitors with us every day.
right? government didn't need to chip us. We chipped ourselves
Yeah, we chipped
voluntarily.
ourselves,
Some
yep,
of us multiple times. So it's
exactly.
crazy, but it's like, so yeah, like I get in my '01 Silverado and I have an ignition key, I have
Mhm,
knobs and dials, and I love it, and that's perfect for me.
yep,
My old man is just like, nope, no, I want all the creature comforts and buttons, and it's like, but you can run all that stuff off a switch. Like if you know what you're doing, heated
mhm,
seats. Dorman makes an aftermarket kit for like $100. I can put it into my truck with
right.
buttons, and I can control it. And like, so where is the safety in all of this? Where it's like in my truck, I can keep my eyes on the road and adjust anything in it. Whereas in his 15 Flex, everything runs through that command center, that infotainment system. You
Yeah, so
can't
that's
you
a
can't adjust
Microsoft deal
anything.
too, ain't it? And that sync?
Yeah. Yeah, that is.
Yeah,
And
that's what I thought.
that's a whole nother that was part of I had some issues kinda getting everything in because I didn't have Edge or Chrome to do this
Exactly.
podcast, and yeah, it's amazing that I get locked out of things as a bot a lot of times. TikTok, I got banned before my first post because it deemed me as a bot because I had
Yes,
all of my personal info locked down so much, and it's just it's crazy. The only reason I am on any of the socials is for the content creation. Otherwise, I could definitely be that paranoid guy living under a rock. I'm totally happy doing that.
exactly.
My wife's probably glad that I'm not, but it's a whole different mindset when you're looking at it from the data that's collected and like what do I care about being collected and what do I not? And
Mhm,
then AI, I'm neither for or against AI. It's just a tool, it's technology, it progresses, but the way that a lot of people are using it is just like you need knowledge going into it.
yep,
And here's an example. That mill over there. I got a pretty good idea how to use it, but I'm not necessarily certain on all the colors of the chips and the speeds and the feeds.
sure,
And so if I had a machinist in my life that could show me, that would be the best. But having AI, I'm able to like I got a pretty good idea what I'm doing, take a picture,
sure,
and it can give some assistance. But I have an idea of what I'm doing. First time I ever used AI to try, okay, let's try to diagnose an electrical issue on a car. First thing
mhm,
it said to do was unplug the battery. Well, the battery's out. I can't diagnose anything that's electrical. The
right.
systems are disconnected. So it's a tool. Is it a good one? About like, I don't think it's worth the cost that we're paying for it.
Which one do
But
you use? That's another good question because there's a bunch of them out there now.
I've used a bunch of them. Right now on the phone, I've got ChatGPT. I've used Kimi. I've used DeepSeek. I've used Claude. I really like Olama. I've got on my computer inside that's disconnected from everything else, and then I download the models that I actually particularly like.
I
I think I
gotcha.
don't know how it's pronounced, Focus with a bunch of O's for doing image generation. I've played around with a lot of that stuff, and where I find it to be an incredibly useful tool is in optimizing our time. So as a
Yes,
teacher, I want to focus on developing material for my students, developing
yep,
lessons. So where it saves me time is on things where it's like, I don't just give homework to give homework. I want it to be useful. Like there has to be a meaning. You've taken your time to come to class with me. I need to make sure that I've made that time and that expenditure worth your while.
mhm,
So instead of making a homework assignment, what I've started doing instead of out of the textbook, because supposedly we've already read it, I'll take an owner's manual from something that we're supposed to know how to use. So say a specific scan tool, like the
sure,
the top down art of Diag. I have the exact ones that we have at the college, and I took that PDF of the manual, uploaded it into GPT, said I need a summary, I need 10 easy questions, 10 intermediate, and 10 advanced questions.
sure,
Awesome for that kind of stuff because that would have taken me a few hours. Could I do it? Yeah, sure. But instead, I'm able to spend that time doing something that's better used for my students. I think that's a good use of the AI, but asking it questions, like just having conversations with it and all the
like it's a
chat bots
magic
and the
8 ball.
automation and the magic 8 ball was right more often than what the AI
Right,
is. And when you really dive into how it works, is like it's just a probability predictor and you can prompt it to almost tell you whatever you want. So I really good for summarizing stuff most of the time. If you give it
yep,
big things, like I've fed it an entire textbook one time, and okay, I need a summary, I need questions from each chapter. Chapter one was good, the rest of it was out to lunch, but a chapter at a time,
yep.
and it was okay.
Yeah, that's exactly
So
it. I typically use Grok and then also a Copilot as of late. So Grok typically does a pretty good job of scraping the internet. That's kind of how I treat it, as like an internet scraper.
yeah,
And
that's what it is.
yeah, and it goes fast. And I don't treat it like it's superior in any way, shape, or form at this point, right? It's not. But it literally is definitely a speed tool, like you're saying. I've used it in the past when I was at the other school to build a rubric for a different, grading rubric for an assignment that I wanted to kind of give, and it was more of a writing assignment. It's one of those deals where I can teach you the skill to work on the vehicles, but also I think as an added value or a value adder, being able to try to teach you how to talk to people as well, and being able to write your feelings and journal some. I think it's a huge thing for people that only deal with things. A lot of times they hang on to the feelings, they hang on to those things. They can turn inward on themselves a lot of times, and that's not really a healthy place to be at. So I've used it before for that type of stuff, and then even before I came on here with you, like one of the areas that I really like to kind of dig into every now and again, I use it for math. I like to check my math and that kind of thing. But like also when you need fairly quick answers that can be at least backed up with a website that, hey, this is where I got these pieces of information from. It's really good at
Yep.
that. And it dovetails real
Yeah.
good into what I kind of sent you before the show is dollars spent, and I looked them up for North America, like for America, but I would suspect um, the model probably follows through with most countries because we're in a competency crisis in most cases when it comes to being able to fix things or to build things, to be quite honest. All the skill trades are underneath the exact same thumb. And when I looked it up, basically my big prompt was like, tell me what is market cap for dollars spent, doesn't matter from where, like, what does it spend on post-secondary school in this country for a 4-year program, a 2-year program, and then what is it for trades? What is it versus? And that was the 2 main questions, like, what is the total of everything? And then what is those numbers? How do they look versus what we put into trades in our own country? And it was quite shocking when it came back because I had no idea between public and private monies every year, America puts almost $1 trillion into education. It's like 800 to $900 billion. And when you boil it all the way down to the bottom, we're putting about $20 billion into the the skilled trades is what we're putting in all the way across. So it's even taking into account those who are taking cosmetology school, basically any ACCSC. That's the big accrediting body here in the states to be able to train and teach people in these career academies. And it's 20 billion total for private.
And that
That's
sounds like a
crazy to me.
huge number, but what does it break down to per student?
That's the thing too. It's like it's tough to say because like when you go in, if you start parsing all this all the way down, of course, I think there's a granularity that starts to come into it, right? Like you're going to get this resolution problem that some of the numbers are going to be skewed any which way that you go, right? If you go one direction or one level down, they could go really far off one way or the other. But honestly, it's like when you figure it out, and most of these colleges are 40 to 50,000 for a year. Some of your basically your additionals can be like 8 or 10,000 to put on top of that. And then that's not even considering like your robotics programs, your electrical programs, your construction programs, all those on top of that. But it's like what they're getting out of it. Like how many certificates do you get? Uh, how can you justify, that kind of price? But when you figure out the spending disparity, it's like, holy cow, like, it's no wonder that, it's like and it goes back to Micro from Micro Works talking about this stuff clear back in like 2010. There's a video I used to share all the time with students about, hey, this is a commendable path that you're on because not everybody wants to do it. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. And that's not how it is. But like how many people want to do this as opposed to how many people can get the money for it to be able to go through the program too, right? But
Yeah.
it's literally like I looked it up, it's like 0.2% of all
Wow.
money spent is going to trades. And I'm like,
That's
well, it's
it.
no wonder that we can't like figure out how to repair things, how to fix things, because it's only going to get worse, in my opinion, as
Yeah.
things become more complex, like you were talking about earlier. We're gonna have nobody that knows how to fix any of it.
Right. And what's so crazy about that is tradespeople build the world.
Yes.
Like it's and being part of the educational system, obviously not so much at the college, but going through university for all my teaching stuff,
Yeah.
it is still amazing the disparity how I don't want to just label all academics, but the more we'll call it the traditional university pathway academics will still look down so much on the tradespeople. And
Certainly Ivy League too.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
But you know what? My teaching certificate versus my diesel truck license. My diesel license is what's afforded me everything. My car
sure.
license was nice, but my diesel one was always what got me the job, got me the better paying jobs.
Mhm.
I don't need my teaching certificate. That's for high school. I've never taught a day paid in high school. I volunteered there. So I spent that 10 grand on that, lost a year of my life of income. So I don't know how much that ended up costing me. If you look at all that, I'm probably 60, 70
Sure.
grand. Easy. Made $0 off of that. But my diesel, which there were, I think it was about 2 grand for the schooling, but there was about four
Mhm.
grands in grants at the time. So I actually got paid to go to school, and that's where all my income has come from. And that's what got me teaching at the college.
Exactly.
So, yeah, cool. Look down on the trades as much as you want, but it's not gonna like we're still gonna build the world for you, right?
Exactly.
Like,
One of the things that goes along with what I usually end up saying, because I explain to them, you're going to have that customer who doesn't understand what it is exactly that you do every day, and they're going to talk down, they're gonna belittle, they're gonna feel maybe possibly that, you're lesser than, and I'm like, all you have to remember is that you know things that they don't know. They may know some things that you know that you don't know, but you really know some things that they don't know. And that's basically how the universe works. Like all the stuff that we teach is physics. Like everything that we teach, all these things are physics. And I explain it that way to them. And I use models and, analogies that draw back to that. It's all pressure vessels, it's all differentials, it's temperature differential, it's pressure differential. Like you're doing all of this stuff, but you have a better understanding of how the entire universe operates as opposed to them. And that means that you actually have a slight bit more power over them than they like to admit. Like you just said, we build the world. We're the ones whose shoulders that the world that they live in, it lies upon ours. We're the foundation of it. So, and I like to explain that to them that way. Just when you feel like someone's treated you, in such with deference or with such a disparate way, don't worry about that. You just remember that you know way more things and a lot of times than they might know. And their small area of knowledge doesn't account for all the things that you may have taught yourself or you've been taught over the years. It's the two things are like so far apart, it's not even funny.
right? And that's so here's something that you can feel free to take this and turn this into a small clip because this is something that I've found absolutely profound. School systems were not designed for people like us. They were not
No,
designed for tradespeople. They're designed for
factory
people that can
workers.
sit in a right.
Yep.
Even some of
Commission
them,
school.
but it's for people that can sit at a desk. Well, you ask a fish to climb a tree, it's going to look stupid, right?
Hmm.
But if we were to have a tug of war with a fish in the water, you know how small of a fish could take a full grown human male down? 30
Right.
pounds.
Yeah.
So, where I'm going with that, for anybody that's saying this doesn't make any sense yet, is you got to find where you belong. When I was in school, I was a solid C student, sometimes edging, verging on the D's.
Hmm.
Put me into the automotive programs, and bam, A student. So that's where I belong, is in a trade program where I could actually go and do something and move around and use my
Hmm.
hands instead of just memorizing stuff at a desk.
Yeah, and a lot of times now it's being played out and marketed that we gotta have 2-year programs, we gotta have 4-year programs, we gotta have, full on attendance. Everyone's gotta be in these programs and basically screw the trades. It's like, yeah, just throw this to the side. We don't wanna focus on that. We can have someone else do that. Well, we're the someone else. Like there is no one else. Like you have to train your entire society in order to do things and everyone has to have some type of a spot where they can put their hands on the rope and help pull it, right? But we don't focus on that any longer, and most first world countries don't do that. Now it's like, well, we're just going to focus on how to use Excel spreadsheet and how to run data and do data mining and how to do all these other things and how to code even now. But it's like AI is coming from those jobs. It's going to be very difficult and probably a long time before AI can come in and have the tactile movements to be able to do the things that we do every day as human beings to actually fix, diagnose, repair machinery, vehicles, any of that stuff.
Right? And I mean, especially if you're somebody that can analyze things and self-reflect, even with
Yes.
the tactile ability, you put that tactile ability with the knowledge and the experience. And it's there may be a day that AI can take on the trades, but it's not today, it's not tomorrow, and it's not for a long time.
No, it is not.
I got tired of students that would cheat. That just drives me nuts. Like if you fail,
Mhm.
honestly, I can help you. But if you look like you're doing great, awesome. There's nothing I can do to help, right?
Right.
So I'm not a coder. I'm very, very basic with my coding. And I used AI to generate a website. So I've got Ohm's law questions, Watt's law questions. My favorite thing when I assign that homework, depending on the mood of the class and my mood, I can give you 5 questions. I can give you 100 because it's
Yes.
randomly generated for everybody and it's a little bit wonky, but that's something that I can do to make sure that the students are trained and capable. And it's harder. They can still cheat, but if you got one guy doing it for the entire class, now that one person is doing 1,000 different questions instead of just the 50 that I had in the textbook.
Exactly.
So there's some definite good uses for AI and even just little
Throws
things
them a
where
curveball.
yes, that's it. That is it. Also threw me a few curveballs as I was debugging the code, and it might have actually been quicker to learn how to code, but it's beautiful because everything's in HTML. So it works on a Mac, it works on Linux, it works on Solaris, it works on phones, iPad, whatever. And I
Sure.
love the students that after the due date, well, sir, it wouldn't work on my iPad. Yes, it would.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it will.
Right?
I know it will.
Yes, it will.
I made
Yeah,
it.
I've
I made
tested it
it
on
for that.
every system possible. So other than I haven't tested it on a headless server, but I'll do that and I'll get back to you. But that's wherein lies another problem with our education systems is people that are in them not for the purposes of education. And you get, okay, how do I look good? Bring up the pass numbers. Great. Like personally, I don't care if you pass or fail. I can be your awesome friend and you'll still fail, or I can not like you at all and you will pass based on what you did. And to
Yep.
prove that, I had an apprentice that I ended up teaching. He almost killed me and he blamed it on me. He put a jack under a semi truck in the wrong spot
Mhm.
and no stands, whatever. I'm under the thing and it falls. Thankfully, the jack fell up into a tube on the car hauler frame and I'm
Sure.
still here. But that kid got a 98. I did not want him to get a 98. Somehow he earned it,
Exactly.
right? But where I'm going with that is like I've gotten in trouble before because not enough students are passing the class. And
Mhm.
usually at that point, like well, I'm going to self-reflect and say, why did everybody fail this test? Like, is this on me? Did I not cover something well?
Exactly.
There's a huge thing in Canada in bringing in as many people as we possibly could because international tuition costs a lot more than domestic tuition.
Sure.
And this was just like, I even went to, for one of the tests, like I'm straight out of the textbook. If you just do the homework in the chapters, those are the questions. Still massive
Yep.
failures. And it was just, well, we have our ratios that we need to pass this many students. That was it. Like that was the conversation. And it's throughout the entirety of our educational system, right from when they first go to school, where it's just when students used to be able to fail and you had to do grade one until
Mhm.
you could cover grade one, there's grade six teachers that are teaching grade one, two, three, four, five curriculums. Who does that leave behind? The grade six student that's working at the grade seven, eight, nine level because they've got it and they don't get any attention. And this comes back just as a whole societal thing is I spend a lot of time with my kid. Not every
Yep.
parent is able to do that. Like some parents have to work. I did all the hard, crazy stuff where I was working two jobs and running a business at the same time, like crazy, crazy hours before I had the kid. I was fortunate in that way. I was able to do that and kind of get stuff set up so I could have the kids spend time with them. But then you
Exactly.
get parents that can't do that and both parents are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet and put food on the table, then that kid grows up to have to do the same thing. And we're getting this huge dilution of the system that is just,
Yeah, it's
it's
generational at that
insane.
point.
Yeah. And it's the teachers can't do anything. And like there were times where if a student acted up, they would get in trouble at school and be more afraid of getting in trouble at home. Where now
That was my era. Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's maybe there's a balance in there somewhere, but it
Yeah.
just yeah, it's insane what the dilution of everything is, and then you look at other parts of the world where I love Japanese woodworking, and I've read lots of books by Japanese woodworkers, and like they're starting their apprentices at 9, 10 years old,
Yeah.
where and they're not doing much, but just doing the running around in the errands. But it's like I've got level 3 students at dealerships that have only ever done oil changes and tire repairs. I
Sure.
guarantee by the time my daughter's 10, she'll be doing that stuff.
Yep.
So, and is it that 18, 19, 20-year-old's fault that that's all they've ever been able to do? They can move around a little
I'd
bit,
say
but at the
maybe
same
some of
time,
it's on them, but
there's a
somewhere
mix of it, right?
somewhere someone has to, like, reach a hand down to 'em and say, "Hey, come here, let me show you this thing. Check this out." There's something else that you
Yeah.
can do to make, be more profitable, make more money for yourself and your family.
Right? And if they're not getting what they need from the spot they're at, like, change.
Yeah.
I always recommend for my apprentices, start at a small shop, start at a one bay shop, find that Romanian technician, journeyman that I had that just yelled at me in every language, including English,
Right.
and taught me some stuff, right? And it was not always comfortable, but wow, did I learn a lot under him. And I'd
Exactly.
love to get him in teaching, but I don't think the system would allow him to stay in it very long.
That's funny you say that. So to the teaching thing, I like to do this thing where I try to take it all the way back to the beginning, right? Like the way that this the Greek school. So like all the way back to academia, so like the Lyceum for Plato or Aristotle. It's like that type of stuff to me is how people were supposed to be taught. It's not the Prussian school that we talked about earlier, where everyone comes in, you run by the bell, everything's by the bell, right? It's built for factory workers. It's built for those people that are like in a cubicle, whatever you want to call it. It's not built for the way that we work on vehicles, the way that we have to problem solve, basically. So I like to take it back to like all the way to the beginning where it's just people in like an olive grove and here's what we get to do. And luckily, I get to teach in a system where I get a lot of discussion. I get a lot of like collegiate discussion on the topics of the day, what I'm supposed to be teaching, and then also on things in the industry, right? Like trends, that kind of thing, AI, these things that we've talked about in this podcast. But I always try to bring it back to you have to be able to do this job. It's not about passing the test. It's about gaining understanding before you leave here. And that's what I always try to bring them back to is don't focus so much on, hey, I got a 60 on this test. Focus on, okay, I got a 60 on it, and here's the knowledge gap that I've got to fix. So go back through your notes, rework the notes, edit them, rewrite them if you have to, and then recategorize everything. Do that over and over again. That's the only way that you're going to know your material. And like, well, that's repetitive. And I'm like, that's practice. It's not repetitive. You're
Miracle
only
on
going to
ice.
learn. Yeah. You're only
Again,
going to
again.
learn exactly. So I do that a lot. And they're like, well, I got ASC practice tests that happen multiple times a phase every 3 weeks. We do a lot of them. Usually it's three, sometimes it's four of them, and usually 25 questions apiece. If it's an unlimited try, the standard is 100%. You need to get 25 of 25 on those. Oh, I'm beaten down, Mr. Stage. Like I've taken this thing four times. Take it a fifth because this is valuable information that you're gaining right now about you, how this test works, how the ASC system works, because the tests mirror exactly that you will take when you go take the actual test. So that's the point of trying your absolute best and getting that 100. And I can't tell you one person that's come up to me after they've gotten the 100, even if it's taken them 7 or 8 attempts. I've never had someone come back to me and say, you know what? I think that was a waste of time. They always come with me and they're elated because they got 100% on it. You believe I got 100% on that? Yeah, but you didn't think you could, but you did. So take that and go into that next quiz, that next test, that next final, and keep using that. And I love to share little tidbit. I'll drop these little breadcrumbs everywhere about, hey, have you ever heard of the allegory of Plato's cave? And they'll be like, what? Plato's cave. You ever heard about it?
I haven't.
No. I was like, the next time you decide to get on your computer and look something up, you should check that out. And then you should read about it. And it literally is, it's our education system in a whole, as a whole, because these are the classics that no one gets taught when they used to be taught them. They used to be middle school, early Aesop's fables, all these things were like, that was how we were taught in the world to be in the world, to be around things that are in the world. We're not taught that stuff anymore. And that's one of those little things that comes out of the book called The Republic that was by Plato. And he gives this allegory of a cave and how it is that people, I'll leave it up to the watcher and the listeners to go into it. But it's perfect in the sense of teaching it as using it as a heuristic to teach and to show people like, we're bringing you into the light is sometimes not very fun. Like I tell them about exams. Exams, here in this country, it used to be the pre-exam to get into Harvard was you had to be able to go to the New Testament and use the Bible in the New Testament and translate it from the King's English into Greek, into the original Septuagint Greek. If you couldn't do that, you didn't get into Harvard. And then
That's insane.
exams used to be oral exams. Sometimes an exam would last for 3 days. People
Wow.
would sit around, your peers or your teachers that just taught you, one or the other, would be asking you questions, and you had to be able to answer them off the top of your head with very few actual, information, pieces of information in front of you. You had to answer them to get to the next level, to get from associates to a bachelor's, from a bachelor's to a master's, from a master's to a PhD. You had to do that. That's not so long ago. That's like less than 100, 150 years ago in some of these
That's
cases.
crazy. But
Yeah,
they sent someone to the moon with no
exactly.
computers, right?
No,
Well,
slide
technically it
rules.
was, but it was
Yeah,
hand woven RAM or processing. Like,
yeah.
yeah, please tell me you have hand woven processor
I
in your
don't, but
desk.
I have something just as good, and I'm trying to find it. I know I have a ton of them as I just brought them back from school. Where
That's
it is at?
awesome.
I
But
have keep going.
it's absolutely
Yeah, here
insane
they
the
are.
amount of knowledge that is out there for those that seek it out.
So one of the
And
things that I love to collect is slide rules. The original scientific calculator, right? I even have round ones.
that's insane.
Yeah,
That's
brand
awesome.
new, like almost never even used.
I
Literally,
love
almost
that.
never used. Booklet, whole 9 yards. I love these things. I don't know how to use one. I'm just completely fascinated by it, and I'm enamored. I mean, you see behind me, like this plane was built with with literally slide rules. It was not built. I mean, Kelly Johnson did not have scientific calculators, there next to him. They had these, literally, if I get it out of
And
the package.
that amount of knowledge is insane. And imagine if we could combine the skill from those engineers with today's technology, what they could do.
Yeah, it would be unbelievable. I mean, the
Yeah,
sky's literally the limit. Like, that's the thing too. It's like this thing's so new that it barely moves. Like it hardly moves at all. The slider will, no problem, but the inside slider to change different areas on it won't.
that's awesome.
But that's the
We've
thing.
got
I mean, I love these. I must have like 9 of them. I at least have 9 of them. And like I said, now I have one that's circular.
That's cool. I think I found my new niche that I'm going to focus on for a
Yeah,
little
and
while there.
they're not even
Like,
expensive. Like from YouTube or from like eBay, you can literally get these things for like 9, $10,
that's
$20.
awesome.
So, and it's a logarithmic scale. So, like at certain points on here, like 3.14 is listed on here, and it says pi right next to it. It's got the Greek, letter pi, and it's all set up. And literally, it does multiple different things. I mean, it's got all these numbers and letters down the side of it. You just line up whatever you're trying to look for. You can go on the internet, you can go to YouTube, find out how to use them. It's completely wild. But
I
that's the
love
thing,
that.
right? It's like I'll drop some knowledge every now and again on some students with this kind of stuff, and they're like, "What is it?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you gotta check it out. Go to the internet, look it up. It's called a slide rule." And they're like, "I've never heard of anything like it." I'm like, "It's not too long ago that that's what everyone used, and that's what they were taught how to use in high schools, in middle school."
I like doing stuff like that with the students because I find it helps reset their brains and it just helps
Yes.
them kind of think. I
Yeah.
write my final exams on a typewriter. I
Yep.
write every single semester with new ones so that at the beginning of the semester, here's the exam from last semester. Let's go through it. Let's analyze it. Let's figure out what you need. And you know what? My typewriter has never crashed. I've never lost a
Right.
file. Like, I have to use my brain, which is a scary thing, but very few spelling errors in it, probably just as much as with the autocorrect and the algorithms and
Right.
stuff that correct the grammar on Word and the other stuff, like word processing documents. But it's just, yeah, like I try to be as authentic as possible with the students. And then what better way to say use your brain than to do something completely manual? And of course, I'm the
Yes.
electrical teacher, right? So
Yep.
that always throws them that, hey, the electronics guy's doing that. That's
So
weird.
my electrical class getting ready to start coming up on Monday actually, and I usually take in a home built Jacob's ladder that I take in with about 12,000 volt neon sign transformer that I built just off some plans off the internet, literally. And I have a terrarium that I put over top of for safety's sake, right? And
That's a
then
good idea.
I'll show them what it does, and then I wrap it up. And at first break, I take it directly back to my car so that no one can actually turn it on by without me around it. But
That's smart,
they love that stuff. They're like, "Oh my gosh,
right?
that's wild. How does that work? Like, why does the this arc come across these two, wires, these copper wires you have. Why does it go all the way to the top and then disappear and then start back over at the bottom, right? And I go into this conversation with them about this is how the real world works. Like everything that you do and everything we deal with is like it's all electric now. I mean, almost everything we have has some form of electric in it, whether it's AC or DC, it doesn't matter. It has to operate on these things. We use it to do work. And I start the class that way and I just keep going with it. So
What a great hook. And that's
yeah,
just,
ain't it?
man, that's such a good hook. And
Yep.
any teacher that just brings that passion, like, oh, it's great. And
It's
I hope
less
one
than
day,
$200 for the whole thing,
right? Right.
time
But why
included.
do
Like,
but why does that stuff have to come out of our pockets? So, and I mean, that one little thing
I
there,
love
okay,
it so
maybe,
much.
but I do too. But for a while there, the funding. So I want to be very clear to anybody that's listening. This is not my particular college problem where I work, but it's just the system in general.
Yep,
We had like no funding and all of our scopes got fried. So I had no scopes to teach advanced diagnostics. I know there's some people out there that I don't need a scope for. I was like, great, you're a parts changer. Like you can fix 80, 90% of the stuff, but then that 10% of the stuff, you're going to send it to the guy with the scope to be able to fix it, or at least to get it
exactly.
right the first time. But not to sound arrogant there, because there's a lot of stuff that
No,
I've
that's
still got
true.
tons to learn, but scopes are where it's at for fixing it right and verifying the problem. Resistance tests, they're junk. I do a demo with my students where I melt
Yeah,
day one, level one, fry a wire. It's not as cool as a Jacob's ladder, but I
it's
fry
still
that
cool
wire,
though,
melt it, and then we go for break because the room is full of smoke. Then when we get
right?
back, okay, let's resist it. What do you think the resistance is? And as long as the wire is still one piece and hasn't melted apart, zero. Good wire. Put this on your car.
Yeah,
So, uh, but back to that
I did
passion,
something
like
similar. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I,
I
I've
don't
got
burn mine.
over.
I cut it. I cut it, and then same thing. I show them. Here's why we do voltage drop testing. We don't do any of that other stuff. No ohms. If it's a component with a specification you can find at a certain temperature, more than welcome to unhook it, isolate it, and check it with your own meter. Everything else, it all gets voltage dropped, all of it.
Yes,
So yeah,
right.
it's the same. It's exactly the same thing.
Where I was going with that, I've got over eight
Yeah.
grand since I've become a teacher, just in buying scan tools and
Yep.
scopes so that I could show my students what's up and what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just insane. We've got thousands and thousands. My wife's been a teacher for like 15 years at the grade
Hmm.
schools, and we own our own laminators and
Yeah.
Cricut machines and all that stuff just to be able to give the students just something, right? And
Yeah.
it's amazing too. There's
Watch this.
we need to do a like a 10 episode series just on education and the different.
These are all pencils and pens,
Wow.
and
Well,
then
then
all
why do you
these
have to
ones.
supply that?
Well,
And it's
these aren't necessarily for them. These are for more for me. I'm kind of a pen aficionado. I love pens. But what I end up doing is gotta figure out how I just hang on here now. What I end up doing is I literally that'll work. What I do like every Friday, those I go through the grade book, I find out who's top three, and I have an entire stash of pens, pencils, tablets, anything scholastic. So if it's something for scholarship, I hand out these things every week to try to keep them and, A, excited, interested, competitive, because it's a competitive marketplace out there, right? And
I
all that
like
kind of
that.
stuff.
Yeah.
I do all that. And basically every time we get a brand new class in, I always start them off with a 97-cent composition book, college ruled composition book. And I'm like, here's what I'm going to have you do. Every day that you learn something, when you go home, I want you to think about the class. Don't write it down while you're at class. Go home, think about the class, think about what you learned. Don't share it in a group chat. Write it down in this book and then write a small piece about that of why you learned it, how you learned it, and that kind of thing. And I try
I
to
love
get
that.
them journaling right out of the gate. And if I get them to do that right out of the gate, typically, and if they stick with it 2 or 3 weeks, I've found that it brings the numbers on the ASC tests that get passed way up. Now, the class that I teach only really is focused on getting them past one ASE, and it's a manufacturer ASE. But that's the thing, they have to have that one really to get a job in the dealership. So my thing is here's what I'm going to do. Your first goal is get your ASE. Your second goal, and handwrite these in their books when they get them. Handwritten ASE, goal number one. Goal number two is get a job while you're here. Get someone to get an offer letter 'cause you need that. And then the third one is graduate all the way through 104 because it's 4 whole, courses. So I hand that to them right out of the gate. And if I show them a small modicum of buy-in, a lot of times if they follow what I've asked them to do and they follow some of the study habits that I teach, a lot of times the tests, ASE tests have went way up since I've gotten there, which is amazing and that's awesome.
That's
And it's
huge.
and that's nothing on anybody that was there before. It's only on thinking outside the box of going, okay, well, if I can do A, maybe I can get them to B, right? And that's kind of where it's went. And luckily, with mine and the other gentleman that works there, 2 courses ago, we had 9 of 11 students get their ASEs, and one class right after that one got 11 of 11 got their ASEs
Nice.
before they graduated. And then this last class, we're running 5 of 9 right now, 5 of 8. So another one just got their ASC just recently, like
Okay.
actually on Friday. So now we're 5 of 8. We've only got 3 more to get this week, these 3 weeks coming up. And if that's the case, another entire class is going to have their ASCs before they leave the school.
That's awesome. And see, what I really like about those numbers is the ASC is not affiliated with your schools. Like, you've got something that's set
Third
and
party,
you're,
exactly. It's
yeah,
completely outside of.
right?
Yep.
You're not just giving them a pass, you're helping them earn it. And that's the key, is that they are earning it. And that's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know all the questions on it. I've went taking it. I've since forgot them. Not only that, you can't share it with them anyways, but I can give them the free ASCstudyguides.com version. Hey, here, go take the G1 because the G1's got a lot of the information off G1 is what's on that test they have to take. So I'm
That's
like,
a
hey,
great website,
go
by
and
the
take,
way.
yeah, it's an awesome website. Go and take like 5 questions at a time. Go take 10. Go take 5. Don't overload yourself. Just take a couple here and there. And then by the time you actually get to go take that test, you won't have to worry about memorization. You will actually understand and know what it is that you're talking about. You'll just be able to sit down, take the test like it's a normal thing, and then leave it because you will have so much experience with those practice tests. Like I mentioned, you don't have to worry about it. And then try to offer tutoring in the meantime, but that sometimes can become quite intensive. A
Yeah.
lot of times I like to get 3 to 5 students that'll commit to actually do it. That way there's more people at least to actually cater to. But even then, with other classes being covered sometimes and maybe having to do a double, which is a double where I'm at is 14 hours. So if I
Okay.
have to do a double, it's a long day. I don't have very much time to share anything, as far as tutoring.
Right? Anybody that's listening to this that doesn't understand the teaching is like, especially, it can sound like, oh, if the teacher works 6 hours, that's a short day. If you got any teacher that's
It's
doing
not
their
6.
job correctly,
Right.
6 hours contact with a student is at least 12 when you consider the prep time, the marking time, any assessment. Yeah,
Yep.
there's I really find with the teaching is that I'm not as physically exhausted as I used to be wrenching on the heavy
Yes.
equipment and the trucks,
Mentally
but the
exhausted.
mental is wow. And it's a very different mindset than just, going into work and being able to work an 8 or a 10 or a 12 or a 16 or whatever and then clocking out, where it's
Exactly.
like I've never clocked out. And even a lot of this machinery stuff that I've shown, I wanted to see what's inside components, and I bought one of them, not a horizontal bandsaw to cut stuff in half for
Mhm.
my students because I'm big on let's do some science. That's what I call setting
Yep.
stuff on fire. Science, because then I can get away with it. And the
Exactly.
bandsaw didn't do a great job, so now I got a lathe, I got the mill. Like, we're gonna really
Yep.
break stuff down. Stress testing. Do you know how many volts it takes to make a squirrel cage come apart? Only
Uh,
36.
I'm gonna say I'm going into the 20s at least, probably 24,
Yeah,
25, so 36 will do it,
24,
huh?
they expand. 36, that's every single one I've tested. Poof, comes apart at 36.
Right
But the
apart.
blower motors themselves are somewhere between 48 and 60 volts before they catch fire and let all the magic smoke out.
Exactly.
But that is neat stuff to do. Or little things that I've got. I don't know where I got it from a retired teacher. I've got a little jar of crude oil, and I love when I'm doing my fuel lessons. We'll talk about that, and I just open it and set it down on the desk, and I wait for it to waft around the room
Oh, yeah.
to. I always try to do that towards the end of the class when we get to leave and another class is coming in. But
Exactly.
the little things that it's like, if you've got a teacher, I find with teaching, there's a huge divide between you got the teachers that give teachers a bad name that just come in and do their class and clock out and
Right.
like aren't doing anything. And then you have either the overpaid or the underpaid ones that are just engage and invest in their own time and money and those kinds of things. It's insane what a good teacher can do
Well,
for
it's the
students.
Pareto rule all the way around, right? Like, you get 80% of your stuff out of 20% of your people. It's that way in the technician world, it's that way in every world, it's in that way in the white collar world. It happens, and it's kind of a law of distribution of the, the entire universe, really. And that's exactly what we end up, fighting each day is exactly that same thing. So, like you're saying, it happens all the time. But to your point with the mental thing, like, I was telling you before we started recording, last week was like my last week of one of the courses, right? Thursday coming home, I get off. It's nice because being a tech, for all those years, I worked 12, 14-hour days in a shop. Now I can get off and I can actually be home in maybe under 9 to 10 hours. But when I get home, that Thursday and Friday this last week, I fell asleep on the couch for 2 hours every day I got home. So you're exactly right. When it comes to the mental side of it, it will
Yeah.
absolutely cook you, to use what the kids say nowadays. You will be cooked by the time you get home. So it's
What the
nothing
kids say
like, yeah, that's
nowadays.
what the kids say
That's,
nowadays, right?
every now and again I'll do that with them. I'll just go 6'7",
Yeah.
skibbity riz.
Uh-huh.
And then I throw off some other stuff I'm so out of touch.
No, it's funny because
But
they'll look at me and go, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, it doesn't sound so funny when I do it at 50 years old, right?" It's like, that's what I'm listening to. And if they do the 6, 7 thing, I automatically tell them, that one brain rot to class. You give me brain rot in my classroom, you get an infraction for it. Like, I'll go right on the board. I'll literally put a brain up there and then put a circle around it and my alarm, put a line through it, like, no brain rot.
that's awesome. I
Yeah,
try
I
to
don't
make
want to
all
hear
my
any of
exams out
that.
of 67. I
Right?
was so disappointed. I screwed up. I made one out of 69. I was like, well, I've never been disappointed for this. Society's weird now.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Now everything has to be this 6 and this 7 thing, right? Like,
right?
I'll catch myself in class skipping it. I'll say 6, and if I was gonna say 7, I'll say 8, and I'll go, "See what I did there?" They're
I
like,
love
"Yeah, I did
that.
see that." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not saying it." So whatever you guys are doing nowadays, sorry, I'm not with any of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome. I'm sure I'll learn all about it as my daughter gets older. And yeah, I'm waiting for the
yeah,
first day. She asked me to drop me off a block away from school, and I'm going to do the meanest burnout that '01 Silverado's ever done all the way past the school and hopefully snap a drive shaft and
exactly,
have to get a tow truck to right in front of the school. But I'm a good dad.
exactly. Yeah. Well, that's
I don't
probably
know
a pretty
about
good
that,
place
but
to wrap it up, to be quite
yep,
honest, Dennis. There'll be very little editing on this one because it's very fluid, a very great conversation, which is the reason I love talking to people that still do this. Because if you talk
that's
to people that still do this, there's all kinds of things to talk about.
that's absolutely correct. And it's a man, that'll get me in another thing talking about teachers that haven't been doing it for a while and trying to make sure I never hit that because I've been off of the floor for like 10 years roughly.
Yeah,
But I mean, I made the mistake of I don't give out my personal cell, but I've got one of
right.
my students can get a hold of me if they want to, and it's always the hard stuff, right? So even though I'm off the floor, I don't
Oh,
get
yeah,
phone calls for the easy questions. I get all the weird stuff, and also occasionally go out and help them out. And I work on old farm tractors because somehow the old guys in the area retired, and I don't know how they got my number, but now I'm working on all kinds of
exactly.
weird stuff. And if you're curious, you could check out the Dennis and the Machines. I haven't dropped any plugs for your podcast. I'm
Perfect. Nah,
sorry.
it's perfectly fine. Nah, it's perfectly fine. I'll get it all cut up. We'll get it out there and let some people, send it around the internet, see what happens with it.
I love that. And I want to know what you guys think and what everybody else thinks. And I'm more than happy anytime that, like, if you ever get a guest that drops out and you need a last minute fill in, I mean, that's kind of how I got my job. I just made the most out of table scraps and turn them into something. So I'm always happy to come back and be that guy. I'll be your substitute anytime you
Perfect.
need it, or
That's
a main
perfect because
guest. That's good too.
I've got some other guys I'm getting ready to do the exact same thing with. We've not been together, one of them since Christmas, Donald Tyrone. I want to invite back on real soon. That he'll be basically a year at that point. And then Bob from RMS over in England from
Nice.
RMS Diagnostics. I'm gonna try to get him come back on in June.
Those
So
are
I
some
want to
pretty
try to invite
powerful.
him.
That's
He
some
was the
good
first one I
stuff.
ever had on, was Bob from RMS, and it turned out pretty good. I mean, I was a totally different studio, totally different, information stuff that I had. Didn't have the nice camera or any of that stuff yet, but yeah,
Right.
it ended up turning out pretty good. So I want to
You
try to
know
get him
what?
back on.
To anybody that's still listening at this point, you've gone almost 2 hours in, depending on how this is edited. So clearly they're serious about their learning. Don't stop just because you don't have the right camera, or you don't have the right tools or
Yep.
whatever. Take whatever you got and
Continue.
just go do it, learn, And whatever you do, I don't care what it is. If it's trying to content creation, you're wrenching and whatever you
Yep.
might be doing, you're going to screw it up. It takes 3 to 5 years to get good at it. And that's roughly 6 to 10,000 hours if you're doing 40 hours a week. And if you're not
That's
putting
right.
that much time in, it'll take a little bit longer. So just don't hold back. Just live your life. Life's too short. Go out and grab it with whatever you've got.
You're
Make it
exactly right.
happen. That's
It's
it.
been
I
a
think that's a good way to
it's been a
wrap it
great
for the
one.
people. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Have a good one.